Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best day movie related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, join me as we gather around to normally talk about movies and movie news and all sorts of good things. And today's going to be a little bit of a special episode, but I'm going to let you know right now, our first half of the show today is going to be a little bit different. The second half of the show still open to your guys' live questions, so you can start firing those in if you wish, and we'll get to those a little bit later. But I am joined today, and I know a lot of you guys are here to see this right now. I am joined today by the CEO and owner of Collider, Mr. Marc Fernandez. Marc, thanks so much for being here, man.
Thank you for having me here. I think the audience knows we haven't actually sat down in a long time, so thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
And obviously, we're here today to talk about the Collider situation, a lot of the stuff that's been going on. And I want to say, first of all, I just want to say this first and get this out of the way. You know, I was really impressed because a lot of leaders could and would do a duck and cover when a big shitstorm starts to come. And you chose, instead of taking the duck and cover route, to get online. And let's face it, with YouTube audiences, that can be a firing squad. And you chose to get online in front of the firing squad and take it to try to address the situation. And I respect that a great deal. And I respect that you're here to talk to the audience and stuff like that. I respect that a lot. Now, I want to be very transparent with our audience about what it is that's happening in this room today. Just to put this into context, so you guys understand the structure of what's happening here. Marc Fernandez and I, when we first started working together, had a really good working relationship. I think I went with you to look at apartments. I think when you were looking for an apartment, I actually went with you.
Yeah, right around the block.
Right. I went with you and looked at apartments. Our relationship, I think, for lack of a better term, tanked. Without going into details of why, my fault, anybody else's fault, whatever. A couple years ago, when you guys did that one town hall meeting at Collider, not long after I left, Marc and I, it's not an understatement to say that our relationship tanked at that point. To the point that I believe the last time Marc and I were in the same room talking to each other, literally Christian Harloff had to throw himself between us and physically separate us. That's not an exaggeration, by the way, guys. That is the last time Marc and I have been in a room together and actually speaking to each other. It has been over 2 years, and I tell you that not to set the stage for drama, but so you can understand the context of what's going on in this room right now. I just want you guys to understand that and what's going on. And so let's get into it here. I've got some questions for Marc. I know he wants to answer them. Marc, after you did the live stream, I texted you. I mean, because you had texted me. Actually, let me even back up just another day or two. Shortly after you guys put out the announcement that you guys were canceling Movie Talk and Jedi Council and all that stuff, Marc actually texted me, and which I thought was very courteous, because I'm not a member of that team over there anymore. So I thought it was extremely courteous of you to text me and say, hey, you probably saw the news that we pulled the plugs on these shows. Really respect what you built, but it was a time for us to make a change. It was a business decision. And I really respected that you did that. I thought that was very, very courteous of you, and you didn't need to do that.
And the reason I did that is because, look, first of all, John's absolutely right. The last time that we were in the same room, it was heated. It was an extremely heated situation. And I like to think that one of the beautiful things that humanity has to bear to the table to this earth is the concept of personal growth. And I think I've been doing a lot of personal growth. I've seen John's channel do a lot of growth. And, when I made this very, very difficult decision, I texted you because, I respect what you built. When we acquired Collider, when I was at Complex, and then acquired AMC Movie Talk and rebranded it Collider Video, that was your baby, and for quite a long time, we did some really good stuff. We built together, John and I built that superstar team that I still think is one of probably the best movie pundit teams ever assembled, when it was you and Jeremy and John and Christian, and this was like an all-star cast, and this is work that we did together. But it is work, to be very clear, that was built on the back of all of the work that you had done preceding to that. And as a as just like, look, it was a personal exchange between you and I, but I did want to send you that text to acknowledge to you that it was tough for me, and it must be equally tough for you, and that I am aware of the fact that this legacy was what it was, and one that you built. And I wanted to acknowledge that between us,
right. And I did appreciate, because again, you and I have not spoken in years.
It's true.
Prior to that.
Yeah.
So now fast forward 24, 48 hours later, you guys did the live stream. And again, all the respect in the world, and I really admire the fact that as a leader of the company, not only could you have ducked and covered, you could have thrown somebody else out there. You could have taken one of the subordinates, made them go out and face the firing squad. You didn't, and I appreciate that. But, I then texted back to you after that stream, and I'm going to be honest here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can pull out my phone and show you guys the text.
Yeah.
I wrote to Marc and I said, listen, man, I respect that you did the stream, and I'm not trying to be mean, but that was a disaster.
I think you said train wreck.
Maybe train wreck. Maybe train wreck was the word that I used.
I'm sorry to laugh, but it's just true. You said it was a train wreck.
I thought it was a train wreck. I respected the intention, though. I because as somebody who has known you, we have been at odds for years. But as somebody who knew you, I was watching you do it, and I knew what it was you were trying to say. I knew what it was you were trying to say, and I was sitting there kind of frustrated, not just because of the answers, but because I knew what you were trying to say, and it wasn't coming out, or it wasn't coming out the way I think you intended it. So I proposed to you. I wrote to you and I proposed to you. Listen, I see what you're trying to get at. What would you think? You don't need to, but what do you think about coming on my show? And let's address some of the issues that came up as a result of that town hall. All right. Mm-hmm. So I've got several specific questions for you.
Sure.
That I'd like to give you the opportunity to.
Can I say one thing?
Sure,
about
absolutely.
About the context of the town hall.
Yeah.
So when I sat in the room that we had shot Collider Live, that I had done Rule of Two for a year in 72 episodes with Riley, the only thing I really brought with me to that room was the names of the people. I didn't have a lot of notes or bullet points or stuff like this. I wanted to be as unguarded as possible, because my true intention was to have a dialogue with the audience. And it became very difficult to have a dialogue with the audience because there was so much going on in the chat. But there also was a lot of support in the chat and a lot of anger in the chat, which I understood. But in my kind of brain, I wanted to walk in there as unguarded as unguarded as possible, so I can try to be as genuine as possible. And I understand in retrospect that it was messy, but I still feel like I tried to be honest about the situation. But I'm sorry, continue. But I just wanted to throw that in there because I can see it now upon reflection. I'm like looking at it, and obviously I can never look at that video again. But when I look at that video, I'm like, I didn't really walk in there with like, an expert PR plan.
Right.
So.
Which is why one of the things that I wrote to you was that one of the things I said to you is like, look, all due respect to anybody who's giving you counsel or whatever around you, I never would have let you done it. And I can almost imagine you there, as you did so many times when we were working together, giving me that face and saying, we're not doing this. I can see that. So let's get into some questions that I think came about as a result of that town hall. One of the things that a lot of questions that people were asking is, and one of the things that caught me off guard a little bit was that this family of people, a lot of them walked in and found out a couple of hours before you put out a public statement that a couple of them were full-time staffers, a couple of them were freelance giggers, but found out that the shows that they've been a part of were now gone, their gigs were gone, the shows were gone, and they only got like a couple hours notice. Now, one of the things that stood out to me, Marc, and I'll be honest with you, was at first you gave a very, understandable kind of response saying, this is kind of how it works in business. And I don't disagree for the most part. I think it does. What struck me as being a little bit uncomfortable, though, was as soon as you finished saying that, this is kind of how business goes, you then spent a half hour talking about all the people that you let go that made it very clear this was not just another normal business. These are people that you had relationships with, and more importantly, these are people that the audience had relationship with. And I just thought that was a bit of a mixed message you were sending. And I'll be honest, that didn't sit with me well. You were on the spur of the moment, sitting here now, 48 hours, I guess, after that town hall. How are you feeling about it now?
Yeah, so it was a very good question. And look, and that question is really broken down into two parts. So part number one is like you said, the standard practice of letting folks go is something that I've been doing my entire life. I've been an entrepreneur and a business owner since I was very young. I've been a manager a few times in my career with also a ton of responsibility around people. So it's something that I've grown accustomed to as normal business practice. So I knew that my relationship or my integrity between me and the people that I was letting go was done correctly, and was done in the right way with the proper packages and the proper, things that a good business owner does to folks that they let go. But what look, I've worked at, Rockstar Games, Echo, Complex, these are incredible places that have done incredible things, but they haven't built, to your point, and I saw your video about this, they haven't built that kind of fervent community that Collider Video had built, and I completely misjudged and miscalculated the ramifications, not between me and my beloved employees that I had worked with for so long, and I think we had a very good symbiotic relationship with. I didn't appreciate the reality of the relationship between the community and those folks that I had let go as deeply as I maybe should have, and in retrospect, it's something that I didn't calculate. Look, and it's a massive, 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 massive learning, experience, because it makes me relook at this entire space, because even like on my little limited experience on Rule of Two, I know that there was a friendship between me and the audience. And when I made my business decisions, I didn't calculate the feelings and the emotions of how the fans were going to feel when these people that they love so much were let go in what could be perceived as unceremoniously. And look, upon reflection, that was a mistake. And I stand by my decision, but I completely acknowledge that it was a mistake on my part. And
if you could go back in time a little bit, would you do it a little bit differently if you could go back in time a little bit?
Look, I'll be honest with you. It's tough. It's tough in business because there's two kind of elements to this, because I really did, and I know I said this in the town hall, and this was part of my calculation, and my decision wasn't taken lightly, and it wasn't taken by myself. I have a board, and it was a tough decision, but it's like when you let somebody go, you know what? That's not even fair either, because in retrospect, I would do it like. I'd hate to think about it, because I know what I know now, would I go back and do it differently? Of course I would. But I'm trying to put myself in my shoes before, the fallout with the fans. Because let's face it, there's been serious anger and fallout with the fans, which I completely understand. So of course, knowing that now, if you go back, you do it differently, and you adjust, and and you try to do the best thing, knowing all the facts that you have. Given all the facts that I had at the time, the bottom line is I was just naive. I was naive to the power of the community around the Collider shows, as limited as it was at that point, because let's be fair, my audience, like you've stated fairly, has dropped. And that's on me. That audience drop is on me. And it's choices that I made throughout the times, choices that you warned me against. Okay, let's just be real about it. And choices that I made personally to change time schedules, to change cast, to try to do all kinds of things to bring us back to the glory days. You know, and I don't know. I'm sorry, I lost a little bit track of my thoughts because there's so much going on in my head. But it was a miscalculation, and it was wrong of me, knowing the reality of what's happened now. So it's like, would I do it differently? Of course I would do it differently, knowing what I know now. Back then, I honestly felt like I was doing the right thing for my employees because they devoted so much to me. And I wanted to give them the respect because, like, look, like when you work for somebody, there's a social contract between people. You know, there's insurance, there's, you know, salary, there's, you know, severance related to how much time you've worked. There's all these kind of technical considerations, and I felt like I was doing all that stuff to the best of my ability, but I miscalculated how powerful that relationship is between our audience and our hosts.
And look, and it's never, look, whenever you've got to let somebody go, whether it's a freelancer, you know, part-time whatever, or a full-time staff, I get it. I've had to do it too. It's not an easy, there's never an easy way to do it. There's not one clear-cut right or wrong way to do it. And I appreciate that, what you're saying. I appreciate you're looking at it as a learning experience. Let's move on to the second question here, though, and thank you for answering that. The second question I want to have to you about is the issue of the fact that all these shows had a show going into the Christmas break. Nobody knew, audience-wise, that these were going to be the last shows, that some of these people have been following these shows for 5+ years. Daily, even though the audience had shrunk. I mean, I think that's even more of a testament to the audience that had hung in there and been faithful to the shows and all that kind of stuff. And they weren't given a final episode to allow, again, we already talked about the staff, but to have the talent of the things say goodbye, for the shows themselves to sign off, all that kind of stuff. Now, you mentioned in the town hall that for you, and on a personal level, I can understand this. You said for you, it was just the goodbyes are hard. It was just too painful for you to do that. And you felt for yourself it was just best. Did you say rip the Band-Aid off? Was that what that was?
That's what I said, yeah.
To rip the Band-Aid off. And I'm going to be honest with you. I was sitting there thinking, Marc, a final episode for a goodbye to the audience that had been faithful and hung in there for years is not about you. It's about giving that last episode for the audience, and at least giving the audience the respect to have to allow the talent to look at them through the cameras again and say, this is our last show, guys. Thank you for being here, and all the good stuff that goes along with that. And I felt that not doing that was more of something that was about, again, the audience, and it was about the people under that roof. You spoke about that again 48 hours later now. Yeah. How would you respond to that?
So look, this is a tough one because of course I considered doing final shows, and I was worried about one thing. And look, now in retrospect, obviously everything I say is going to sound kind of wrong, but I just want to give you a little insight into what I was thinking. I was a little bit worried about creating a false positive with these shows, having it be like, if it was a final episode, having it be such a huge turnout, and then me feeling regret about doing this because I don't want to lose these shows. You know, I never wanted to lose these shows. That's why I invested so much time, energy, and money into these shows. And doing final episodes sometimes can bring forth a false positive where you have, again, back to the glory days of when you were on the show, you get those big numbers, you get all the fan support, and it makes you feel like, oh man, like maybe I'm doing the wrong thing here. I need to, you know, keep trucking with it, and then eventually find myself in the same pattern that I had been in for the last few months of putting more effort into it and resources into it than the return I was getting out of it, and then still inevitably having to come to the same choice. So that was part of my calculation, a little bit deeper thinking than pull the Band-Aid off. And look, pull the Band-Aid off, I think, is a term that is used because it hurts really bad when you pull a Band-Aid off a wound, but at the end of the day, it's better than just like messing with it for a long time. And that's what I thought was the right thing to do. But you're right that it was a very much centered decision around that was the right thing to do for me. It wasn't, again, just like with the employees, I didn't calculate into the decision strongly enough my representation of the audience. It's almost like in a perfect world, like businesses like ours that have such community components of it would have like a few representatives who could sit at the table and give you the fan perspective, because I had my business perspective from my partners. I had some internal perspective, but I didn't have the fan perspective. The fan perspective is all conjecture. It's all like hypothetical. It's what you think may happen. And if you don't have a lot of experience with community, sometimes you will make misinformed decisions. And if I could go back, it's almost like years ago, to institute community representatives that actually speak and are in the what's the word I'm looking for? Are kind of like in the understanding of what the fans want and how the fans feel. It's actually something that might be very valuable to businesses like ours, because I didn't have that counsel to say, hey, a final episode is actually something that we absolutely need. Like, we won't be able to move on, and the pain is going to be worse than the gain. Look, in retrospect, of course, it would have been great to do that, but I did make the choice, based on me wanting to refocus the company, and that's something that I stand behind. It's something that I'm actually extremely excited about. But I think the bottom line is, John, is that the fans deserved better. And it's something that is with me. It's something that I wish maybe now that we are having this kind of dialogue, this meta dialogue of the fans and us as the creators, that there was something we could do moving forward. And it's something that I'm open to, and it's like, now I'm kind of just talking crazy, but if the fans were to rally around a few folks that spoke for them and say, hey, if you really feel this strongly about it, this is what we would like to see. And it's something that I'd be open to try to maybe give them. Because, right now it's just screaming at me, us trying to protect the folks that are still at Collider and all the beautiful plans that we still have. And looking for a resolution is important. And resolutions aren't going to be me just saying, I'm sorry for what I've done, because I'm actually extremely excited for the future of what we're building at Collider. But I do regret the actions I've taken, mainly because I didn't consider the fallout to the fans that had supported Collider Video, AMC Movie Talk, and all that stuff for so many years. And it's a huge learning for me.
I appreciate that. All right, let me... There's a few other things we could get to, but I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on this thing here quickly.
Yeah.
The Jack Hind situation.
Sure.
By the way, Hind.
It is
Hind. Okay. Yeah. I've never met the kid.
Yeah.
As I expressed, I've never met the kid. Now, one of the interesting things you mentioned in the town hall was because this kid had clearly come along sometime after I had departed, so I had never met him.
Long after you left.
So I had a couple of other people who were at Collider would I'd say, well, who is this Jack Hind? Because he's kind of the number two. One of the things you mentioned, and I'm going to ask another question about the Jack Hind, but just so you can make it clear, because I think this is an important point. One of the things that you said on the town hall, which I thought was important, was that he's not actually your number 2 there. No. So I think that's an important thing to mention, because that's what was communicated to me. So that's what I told everybody. But you mentioned he was not your number 2.
He is not my number 2. Jack Hind works on the revenue side of the business, and he has done a lot of really supportive things for the business behind the scenes on the revenue side, on the administrative side. He is not a number 2. He's actually quite young, a very smart young man, but did some very, very dumb things. And yeah, look, I mean, we know what happened, and it was insensitive. It was dumb. And when Ken Knapsack called him out, Ken and I were texting right after that, and I knew the potential ramifications of it, and I knew that he had kind of deserved and earned them, you know? But yeah, he's not my number 2, but he does give a lot of effort to the company, and has for almost 2 years now. But you know, he works on the revenue side of the business.
All right. So one of the things that a lot of people were asking during the exchange and everything was, what then, you know, what does he do? I mean, so what does Jack, if you go, you're mostly on the revenue side, but why would it, I'm just curious, why would it be that some people perceived him as like kind of a number 2, as was communicated to me by, what does he do there?
That's a very good question, a very fair question. I think because when we have sponsorship programs and stuff and responsibilities to our brand partners to deliver certain things for sponsorships, those tasks get assigned to Jack. So Jack has to kind of make sure that those things are executed. And when there's a show and, you know, there's a sponsorship for a certain brand, and that sponsorship needs to have things read at the top, things read at the bottom, placements in the thing and whatever, he helps make sure that gets done. So that can seem like, hey, the sponsorship needs to be done, do this, do that, and do the other thing, and the folks could take it, oh, he's bossing me around, but it's not like a number 2 as in makes decisions or anything like that.
Right.
He's executing sponsorships and stuff like that. So
okay,
it's like if somebody came up to you and said, hey, you know, whatever, you know, Sony has a sponsorship for you, you got to do X, Y, and Z. Even though you're complete control of the situation, you do have somebody telling you what to do if you want to get the sponsorship.
Right.
You know, so internally, and look, to be honest with you, it's a little bit more info that I'm usually comfortable giving about the inner working of my company.
Yeah, and I don't want you to have to go too deep.
But that's his role.
Okay. So staying on the Jack Hind thing, one of the things you said, there were a lot of people who wanted to know how you were going to deal with the Jack Hind situation, because what had happened was unacceptable. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was unacceptable.
I completely agree with you.
And I think, and this may surprise people to hear, I think the way you responded, at least in part, to the question when you said, look, this is an employer-employee situation, an employer-employee disciplinary situation. This is not something that should be made public. I actually appreciated that. And I think while I think a lot of people wanted to know what did Jack get for saying the stupid things he said, I actually appreciated very much, because that was the professional thing to do, and I appreciated that. However, I think what a lot of people would want to know, even in light of the fact that it was appropriate not to discuss what disciplinary action was taken, I think a lot of people would at least like to know, because it wasn't just a dumb thing to do for the company. Because you putting out these tweets and you're talking to some beloved characters like talking about the shows that have been on, whether they were movie commentary show or fart jokes or whatever. When you're talking to a beloved figure like a Ken Knapsack or whatever, you're representing the company publicly when you put out public statements. But it was also, I felt, very insulting to the fans who had hung in there on those shows and loved those shows and supported those shows. I think what a lot of people would want to know, even if not the details, I think it's fair for a lot of people to ask, was there disciplinary action with Jack?
So yes, there is disciplinary action with Jack, and like I said, I do keep that internally. And I'm a big believer in giving discipline. Look, it's not like, okay, this is I'm trying to be as honest as possible here without giving the inner workings of my company and violating what I believe are personal situations. But if let's just take a hypothetical situation, okay? Let's say that you have an employee who does poor work and that does something that is like that requires discipline. The level of severity of that thing that requires discipline is weighed against the level of work and commitment and things that he's done before, you know?
Right.
So if somebody does poor work and they do a slightly dumb thing that requires discipline, it's very easy to have cause for termination and stuff like that. If somebody does really good work, okay, for a period of time, does something incredibly stupid, okay, which it absolutely was, and I'm talking straight to you, Jack, you have to weigh those things out and then consider to yourself, is there enough remorse, number one? Is there enough acknowledgement of the mistake, number two? And do you as a manager honestly feel that the person sitting across from you is repentant for that and is committed to learning from it and never doing it again? And in my situation, that requires or earns a second chance. And you know, with Jack, was a tough situation, and I'm probably speaking about it a little bit more than I should, but because even though it's completely behind the scenes, it's completely in a supportive role. It's not in a managerial role at all. There are no direct reports into Jack at all. And you know Collider, you know a lot of the folks that work there. There's a lot of managers at Collider. I mean, Collider, like you've said, is a big operation, you know, and there's a lot of managers there. Jack doesn't manage anybody except carrying out these sponsorship plans. And, you know, for me, it's like I'm a big believer that if the value exceeds the issue, and I've had other issues at Collider as well where I've had to make the same exact decision.
To be clear, it's not like, as harsh as I was on him, deservedly so, it's not like he ran out into the sidewalk and beat a child with a baseball bat in the street. I mean, just to be clear,
yes,
right?
Yeah. And look, and I think, and to be honest, I listened to your entire video, and I understood your anger. And I thought you were right to be angry because you were expressing a lot of the anger that I had. Because, you know, it was, I mean, there's no way to justify it. It was absolutely dumb. You know, it is what it is. But my point is, I also have to be true to who I am. And if somebody has done enough work that nobody sees in front of the camera that deserves the contemplation of a second chance under very strict guidelines, I do believe that people deserve second chances. I know that I've been given second chances, and second chances are learning experiences, you know? Yeah, look, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here because you and we do have a past relationship, and I tend to feel comfortable with you, and maybe I say stuff that I shouldn't say. But the bottom line is that it was completely insensitive. I know Jack has reached out to a lot of the folks that he offended privately. I want to be very clear about something. Jack has wanted to do public apologies about this.
I'm glad you brought that up.
On several occasions. And I am the one who told him not to do it, okay? Because I was afraid that they wouldn't give him a chance to actually apologize and that it would just create fuel to the fire. I mean, Twitter has become a place where it's very easy to just pile on and see red, and you see red, and the folks that see blue, you know, sometimes their voices aren't heard, and it's very difficult to actually get to the root of a constructive conversation. So given that there was so much anger, which is deserved, I felt that, you know, anything would just exasperate. My Hispanicness is coming out. I have some trouble with this word. Exasperate.
Yeah.
Exasperated the situation, and I didn't want that. So it was my choice, you know. And while I was being counseled by you know, my social media manager, you know, Dorian Parks, or somebody I respect greatly, that maybe he should give a public apology, and he had written one, and people read it, and it's just like I'm the one that felt, you know, at this time anything is just going to make the situation worse, and maybe again that's a miscalculation on my part, you know.
It's not an easy decision. That's not an easy issue. That's not an easy one.
So look, but again, people that make mistakes, depending on the value of their character prior, which is a calculation in that, have either earned. It's almost like they earn second chances depending on what they did before. So it's like what you did before, your mistake is how you calculate how much of a second chance opportunity you should have. Even though the disciplinary action is there, and there's thin ice. It's just a reality of it. Look, it's something that we all have to own from the Collider side, and I have to own as his boss. It was a very, very tough situation because ultimately, again, this is the going theme here. The fans are the ones that built Collider Video, okay? And the fans are the ones that are being hurt the most by these actions, by the letting go of the staffers, by not having a final show, by Jack Hind's insensitive comments. It's like it hurts them a lot more than us, and that's the real big learning consequence for me, is that you got to take the fans a lot more seriously, and maybe as we evolve in this business, we got to build actual infrastructure to understand what the fans' opinion is, and like there is some stuff like that. There's like the chat, which you're actually very smart. You didn't show me the chat because I'd probably be like very stressed out right now. But there's chat and there's like donations and there are ways to communicate with folks, but there isn't this kind of almost like nation to the people dialogue that has representatives that can actually speak for many, that can help counsel folks like us that are creators into what they understand the contingency wants.
Right. I listen, as somebody who's been in a leadership position from AMC to Collider, whatever, it is so easy to second guess the decisions made by the people in charge. It's so easy to play armchair quarterback. And I hate it when people do it with me. I do. I would want to just suggest one thing, though.
Sure.
I think on the one hand, you are absolutely right. If Jack Hind had put out a public apology, I believe the initial reaction to it would have been dumping fuel on the fire. I think you're absolutely, I think your instinct on that was right. I think that is. However, I think if you look at it longer term and you see that the initial reaction would have been, okay, that's the first few days. But then after that, what everybody always then has the ability to fall back on is like, yeah, like remember things, yep, he apologized for it. I think there would have been a short-term, very expensive price tag to pay in the negative reaction. But I think the long-term benefit of it, because what might happen now with some people is that as we move forward long term, yeah, but that guy never apologized to the fans. That guy, yeah, but he never did that. And that's something that wouldn't be there. And honestly, I think at this point, I don't think there's any point in him coming out and doing it now at this point, probably. But I might want to suggest there might have been another approach to that. But your instincts are right. I agree with you. I think had you put that out, I think the initial one would have been pretty harsh. Maybe right, maybe rightfully, maybe not, but I think it would have been pretty harsh. Let's move past Jack for a second. I'm sure we might come back around to him in a little bit, but let's talk about the direction that Collider is going, because I know it's something you're very excited about.
I am, and it's bittersweet, in this dialogue. But sitting here with you, it gives me great confidence, man, because, in all full transparency, I've been requested to do a lot of interviews, and I'm sure folks would be very interested in chatting and trying to get the story and the headline and stuff. But one of the big reasons why I'm here with you particularly is because, A, you built what became Collider Video, right? It started with AMC Movie Talk. And I believe we were together at Collider Video for quite some time too, right? It was measured in years, correct?
Yeah, we were together for a while, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you've gone on and you've built this amazing show, and you found your audience again, or they came with you, like I remember one of the things when we first got AMC Movie Talk and turned into Collider Video back in the day, was AMC Movie Talk had a lot of subscribers, and in a matter of like, I want to say it was literally like a month and a half, 2 months, almost all the subscribers came over.
They followed us over.
Yeah, came over to Collider Video. And like that was very impressive. So for me now, looking forward into the future, I want to build a complementary sort of network in this space where we all play up to our strengths. Like you created the ESPN of movie news, and you're still doing it, and it's still thriving. And Harloff had the Howard Stern, and that's doing great and thriving. And for me, it's almost like, I not to give too much sunshine to myself, but what I would want to do is kind of like the HBO of movie news. Like I love the idea of building long form documentaries, and we have a bunch of those that we're trying to do. I love the idea of doing film satire, and that's what I've been doing with the deepfake thing. And everybody's like, oh, he threw everything away for deepfake. Deepfake is just an expression of what I'm into, and like you said it very correctly, and you said it as a critique, but you're right that I do like following trends. I do like innovative technologies. These are things that get me hyped. When I walked in, John has this beautiful poster of George Lucas, and it warms my heart because like that's who I kind of model myself. Or at least I try to. Not that I've gotten anywhere close, but it's like, how do you use technology to enhance storytelling? Like that for me is a passion, whether you agree with it or not. It's something that I'm passionate about, and if my resources, I want to focus into that. I love the idea of Perry and Snyder and Mance and what they're doing with FYC, which I agree is not part of your lane, right? Celebrity, and even at Collider. Look, to be very honest, whenever I wanted to go into the celebrity route, you always wanted to steer us away from it, and that's and to your point, it works great for what you've built. I still like the idea of interviewing celebrities from the perspective of teaching the folks that have those same kind of aspirations, how did you get there? Like what golden nuggets of passion and sort of process can you give us to inspire the young people? And that's the lane that I want to try to carve out for Collider Video. It's like celebrity lifestyle content is something that I like doing because it hopefully inspires young people to follow in the footsteps, and that it's possible to follow in the footsteps of these great creators. Doing comedy and sort of like commentary around our space, I think is fun. I'll be honest. We shot one yesterday that I thought was a blast. And exploring new things, exploring maybe scripted. I have super talented folks in the office that like are so passionate about that, and I think that there's many lanes,
Right.
And like in this space, and I'm very confident and very psyched about this new lane that I want to go into. That's different than the lane that I was at before. Now, that's not to say that having commentary shows or debate shows or something like that is not something that I would ever consider again. But like I'm very excited about the focus of going into our documentary work, about going into our celebrity lifestyle formats that we're trying to make more and more and more and more premium as we go, keeping our sort of humor, comedy things going with the great actors that we work with. And then maybe get into scripted. And like, yeah, I do have a VR studio, and I'm very happy that I released my first VR game in partnership with Showtime. I believe December 14th or 13th we released it, and it's done well. It's sold. It has a mostly positive rating on Steam. We have 2 more VR games that I'm working on right now that are original IPs that I'm very, very excited about. And like, that's my lane, and like I want to play up to my strengths, but I also want to be conscious. Now, this is my biggest learning of this thing, is how important the community is to all of this, like you stated very articulately in your video, and see how I can get better about hearing their voice.
Right. And let me throw, because
Yeah,
I
sorry,
want this.
I rambled on a little bit, but
I want this to be mostly about you and you expressing your mindset to everybody. I would want to throw this out there. If there was anything I could give to you in any sort of form of advice, it's this. is that I think, I mentioned in my video, I referred to the things like the celebrity stuff, whatever, as accents. What my fear, and you actually have far more experience than me on the business side. You have far more experience than me. So take my concern with a grain of salt. My concern is you can make the most beautiful, wonderful revolving doors, but at the end of the day, they're still revolving doors. Like, I think something like the celebrity stuff, the for your consideration stuff. Matter of fact, I was at the ArcLight Cinema last night.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I went there with my wife to go watch 1917, and we noticed as we were walking out that on the billboard was saying there was a for your consideration screening there last night.
Yeah, we had one.
I think stuff like that, which you have some tremendously talented people involved with, particularly Perry and Mance and whatever. So it's and the deep fake stuff. Like for instance, I thought the first couple were really, really funny. My concern is that these are excellent revolving doors to bring new audience in. But if you don't have community things that foster of, we are people who go and visit Collider. If you don't have that community stuff, that's what keeps everybody there. So you have these incredible things you're creating to bring them in, but without any sort of thing to build community.
An anchor.
They come in and then they go right around the other door, and then you're just spending your time trying to get them to come back with the next video you make.
That's
instead
fair.
of them being there. And that was always kind of my fear, to be honest with you. And one of the things you mentioned in this video, and this moves into our next question.
Sure.
One of the things you mentioned in your video is that you didn't want to compete against me, Harloff, stuff like that. My feeling on that is that ESPN was created in the 70s. A lot of people, when it was created, thought 24 hours of sports. That's ridiculous to think now, but at the time, it seemed like a really foreign concept. They spent years building the demographic and building the audience who would gravitate towards that. My argument has been that, and me and Christian have talked about this, me and some folks over at Screen Junkies have talked about this, has been that if we're fighting and competing over the same 80,000 viewers, there are 500 million movie fans who have internet access. We are in the midst of we are in an area right now that we are growing and developing. And if we were only fighting over the same 80,000 viewers, then we're all in the wrong business. We're all in the wrong business if that's what we're really doing here. There's plenty of audience for everybody. And you said something to me very cute, because I put out kind of a fun little tweet saying, hey, Collider, if you're not using the word movie talk, I got something I can do with it, right? And you said something that to me that was very encouraging. You texted to me something, and you said that you may have future plans for it. See, for me, who I have been critical, both before I left Collider and since, about certain decisions you've made there.
Yep.
Hearing you say I might have, when I say I mean you, that when you say I might have a future use for that name yourself. See, to me, that's encouraging to hear. That's encouraging to hear. And because I want to make sure that I would hope that you would be able to use and leverage the things you have to launch the things you want, and yet you don't burn the bridges with the things that you have in an attempt to create the things you want. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Look, it does make sense. And look, I'm real time processing a lot of what you're saying, and I'm even still thinking about the thing you said in the last question. And it's like, I don't want to close the door on these brands that you built and the community that came with them, and the stuff that Christian did with Collider Live. And even to some degree, at a much smaller scale, the stuff that Marc Riley did and I did with Rule of Two, right? Like, these are brands that I don't want to say, oh, here's let's dig the ditch and they're forever gone. Flowers grow on them. It's like you never, if you find the right opportunity. The cameras might go off and you and I might speak about something and we might come up with a way to actually do something with Movie Talk, I of course, I think one thing that about me is that I'm not stubborn, I'm not stuck in my ways. Decisions constantly change based on new data, and a decision that was one way one day can be another way the next day if a new variable is introduced to the calculation. And that's why look, maybe in retrospect, thinking about one of your earlier questions about the final show, maybe that plays in the back of my head that I'm not ready to say this is completely gone and dead forever, but that Collider is refocusing its efforts away from that into new content. But I still won't say that those things are never coming back because why? Because it's just not true. Because in my head, I could walk out of here right now. I could run into Ray, who's downstairs, who worked with Collider for years, and I'm so glad that he's doing such a great job with you. And Ray gives me a great nugget, and then we bring it back. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, let's just be clear. You're not bringing Ray back.
Yeah.
Let's just be real clear about that.
No.
You're not bringing Ray back.
I'm not bringing Ray back. But Ray was great, and he's doing great work for you, and I'm very happy to see him. But yeah, there is no finality to these brands, because to your credit, Christian's credit, Marc Ellis, John Schnepp, all these great people built these really, really powerful brands that I'm confident that those people that are fans of it will still remember it vividly 30, 40 years from now. And that's not an easy thing to do.
So listen, I just want to end off with this. And again, you've been incredibly gracious with your time and I think incredibly courageous to do your town hall meeting, to come on here. I'm not the easiest guy to be in a room with one-on-one. I know that. Yeah. So I really respect that you've done this. And I think considering the fact that the last time we had a face-to-face discussion, without exaggeration, we were 2 heartbeats away from the police being called. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I have my criticisms. I think now, 48 hours later, I think you're starting to understand why some of the audience was as passionately upset as they are.
Yep.
But if I were to ask you now to just one last thought about why is it, and this was important to me to give you this opportunity, why is it you're excited about the future, understanding where everything is right now? Why are you excited about the future of your company, the future of Collider right now? What makes you excited right now?
So I'm excited because I genuinely feel that my biggest opportunity is to redefine media as a whole. And I know that sounds ambitious, and it absolutely is. But it's like my grandfather used to always tell me, right? When you're navigating in the, I grew up in the Keys, when you're navigating the ocean, you shoot the stars to navigate the horizon. And that's my ambition. My ambition is to do whatever I can to discover, to lose sight of the shore, take my boat, lose sight of the shore, and discover what's on the other side of the horizon. And I'm very, very excited about that. And look, that comes with its consequences. I tend to over-tinker, and something that you brought up to me 4 years ago. But I also feel confident that a lot of times in my career, I have discovered new plots of land that are fertile and bear fruit and create brand. And create strong brands, but now, this new land that I found that is strong brand and community, it's a different variable that I'm learning more about, but I am very excited about the future because I know that me and my team and the culture that I'm trying to build is a culture that's not afraid to lose sight of the shore and innovate and try new things. And you might fail at 9, but when 1 hits, then it feels good, and it feels good because it starts to influence others, so I couldn't be more confident, more happy about the future of Collider. But I do have to also take stock in my decisions. I own my decisions, and I feel that refocusing my business was the right thing to do for all the employees that are left on my business. As you know, my business is not just video. I have many different business units.
Right.
I own other sites as well. I have a responsibility for a lot of souls on my vessel, that we call, Collider. And I do feel in my heart that I'm taking them to land that bears fruit. And I'm very excited about it, But I've learned a lot from this situation, and maybe everything that's been going on will inform how I navigate the ship moving forward. I mean, it definitely will inform how I navigate the ship moving forward. But maybe it'll also inform me looking at different directions and focusing on different things. But ultimately, I'm very, very, very excited and confident about the future of Collider. And I just want to try to build the best possible companies for my employees and for my audience.
Well, Marc, we've gone almost an hour here.
Oh, wow.
Again,
Really?
I want to again. I was obviously I was critical of your town hall meeting, but I really thought it was courageous of you to do it. I really respect that you would come in here now and face it again, especially after the fallout of the town hall. I think you did a really good job here today of maybe not change, maybe you didn't change everybody's mind, but I think you did a really good job here today of at least sharpening in people's minds an understanding of where you're coming from and what your vision is. Because I honestly thought that was a little bit muddled in your town hall. I think you did a really good job here today of communicating what your thought process is. And I think there's going to be a number of people that appreciated what you said here today. So, and again, I respect that you're in here because I know I'm not the easiest guy to be in a one-on-one with.
And I know that a big part of why you did this, and I appreciate you doing this, is because this was your baby, and Collider Video is something that you slaved over tirelessly, and that you built a culture of a very closely knit team inside the studio, and that permeated to the outside of the studio. So if I was going to have this dialogue with anybody, I wanted it to be you. So thank you for actually facilitating that.
All right, man. Well, thanks for being here, and best of luck on everything moving forward. Hey, guys, listen, we're going to take here, as normally Rob and me and Aaron and Chris normally do at this point in the show, we're going to take a quick break here. Give me a chance to catch my breath, rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill the drink. Gives me a chance to see Marc out here. We're going to carry on, of course, going into hour number 2 with your live comments and questions. Let's talk about some movie stuff, too, guys. Let's talk about some TV. Got some great stuff going on. Whatever you guys want to talk about. So if you will indulge me, guys, here for just a couple minutes, hang tight. We'll be back in 4 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Guys, and we are back. Listen, guys, I want to first of all thank all of you. I know that's very different from what we traditionally do here on the John Campea Show. It is not what you normally tune into the John Campea Show for, but I'm somebody who doesn't like drama, and there's been a lot of it going on. Of course, it was something that I wanted to stay out of at first. The Jack Hind comments kind of drew me into the fray. And all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I wasn't joking earlier. What I said off the top of the show was not a joke, and it was not an exaggeration. It was not being facetious. Marc, Fernandez, and I have not spoken in years. We've not spoken in years. And the last time we were together in the same room, Harloff had to physically separate us, and I had to be physically restrained. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. That's how it was. But I thought this situation needed a little bit more clarity, needed a little bit more whatever. And I appreciate you guys so much for giving me the opportunity to do that and for coming in here and watching that. And it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds. It's going to be interesting to see what the future holds. And thank you guys for your patience and coming here and taking that in. And I appreciate that very much. All right. Listen, with that down, guys, we're going to go on and take some of your live questions. Woo! How do we change gears like that? I'm not sure. My brain feels like it's kind of trying to bust out of my head because, I mean, some people would argue that maybe that happened years ago, but my brain feels like it's trying to bust out of its head for this massive change of gears. So let's jump into some live questions and talk about some movie stuff. All right, guys, let's do that right now. Let's jump over here right now. And we're going to start things off here with Willow, who wrote in, "Darn it, you foiled my plan to trigger your Google Assistant. Still no trailers for Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone. Crab L, that's one of my favorites. My favorite creations is Crab L and Jar Boy. Should we be worried? Yeah, you know what? Those ones, Willow, might have flown under the radar a little bit. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, here's something you probably haven't considered. Is it possible that Christian Bale is playing an Eternal? The Eternals are basically space gods, and it's possible not all of them will be introduced in the Eternals movie. You know what? Let's put it this way. Whenever you write a question of could, ever, possible, the answer is always yes. But this is not a crazy theory. The idea, because for those of you who missed the news yesterday, it was announced that Christian Bale is now in final negotiations to be in Thor: Love and Thunder, which I think has got a lot of people excited, a lot of people jacked, a lot of people, just talking about who's he going to be? Is he going to be Gore? Is he going to be Cull? Is he going to be all these different people? I think you raise an interesting possibility there that, hey, what if he's actually playing an Eternal and they're spreading this out? Well, I'll tell you what. If we find out a little bit later on when the Eternals does come out, if he does a little bit of a cameo in there, we'll know what the answer to that was. All right, Daniel H. writes, buy yourself a new chair with my money. I still got this terrible chair. I should have sent in enough by now to get a nice little outdoor folding seat. You know what? Thanks to you guys, I am going to get, this is like a 10-year-old chair with no padding left, but it doesn't help the show, so I don't spend money on things that are just for me and not for the quality of the show. But I think at some point I probably do, because my ass hurts at the end of every single broadcast. I'm not going to lie to you. I got to stand up and stretch out. It's torture. I probably should do that. All right. Tony Rodriguez writes, what do you think of the validity of the leak that Universal is selling back the rights of Namor and the Hulk back to Disney Marvel? Have you heard this bring on the filthy? Yeah, we actually talked about this on the show the other day. There are some rumors going around. And by the way, the rumors are coming from one guy who heard from one guy, an anonymous guy, that's what was happening. So you got to take that with a grain of salt, right? It doesn't mean it can't be true. You got to take it with a grain of salt. At this point, I'm going to operate on the assumption that it's not true. Like, I believe this one guy from like MCU Cosmic is the name of the website. I believe he was told that. Like, I have no reason not to believe that he was told that. But one guy being told from one guy who's an anonymous guy, and even the one guy telling us is saying, I think you should just take this as a rumor, then I think we're safe right now to go on the assumption that it's not true. But we can take it and file away in the back of our heads and just keep our eyes open for anything else that pops up that looks like it might support that. So for now, my assumption is it's not true, but it's an intriguing notion that could have some validity, and we'll see what kind of transpires over the coming months to see if anything kind of gives flesh to that. All right, Casinema Reviews writes, you're going to hate me for this, John, but I'm hoping that Disney does a release of The Rise of Skywalker with extra footage and hopefully add something to fix that awful, depressing ending. Mind you, what I think they need to do to fix likely wouldn't happen, but still there. I mean, look, I'm the biggest Star Wars fan in the world. I don't like The Rise of Skywalker. I admire and I appreciate the movie they were trying to make. Didn't work for me, that's fine, but it worked for a lot of people, and that's great. I don't know that there's any adding of some extra footage that's going to fix the movie. For somebody like me, though, for somebody like me who didn't like the film, I don't know that adding a couple of extra scenes that they deleted is going to make me go from somebody who didn't like the film to now magically I like the film. So I believe the film you release is the film you got, and I'd rather them do that. But I could see the intrigue. I could see the intrigue there. And again, I know a lot of people really like The Rise of Skywalker, and that's wonderful. I wish I was one of you. I wish I was one of you. All right. Zane writes, speaking of the best movies of the 2010s, rewatched the movie Arrival. That was kind of fun. The whole backward thing. And I liked it a lot. But when I first saw that movie, I really didn't like it that much. What are some movies that you had different experience after the second viewing? Thanks a lot, and hope y'all are doing well. Well, listen, the one film for me, it really doesn't happen that often that I have a drastically different experience with the movie the second time I see it. Sometimes little bits. The one time I can really think of where I hated a movie the first time I saw it and then loved it the second time that I saw it, for those of you who've been watching me for a while, you know what I'm going to say. Inglourious Bastards. I went to a screening of Inglourious Bastards when it was first coming out, and I hated the film. I didn't just dislike it, I hated it. I thought it was terrible. I thought it was awful. I thought Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards was absolute shit. I thought it was terrible. Fast forward a few months, all right? And I'm in Los Angeles, and I'm dating around, as I was when I was first moving to Los Angeles. And this girl that I was hanging out with, she suggested, I'd only gone on like 1 or 2 dates with her, and she said, hey, how about I come over to your place and we'll watch movies? I'm like, of course. Because that's the way we think. But then she says, I want to bring over Inglourious Bastards, and I want to watch Inglourious Bastards. And I'm like, fine. I mean, if that's what she wants to watch, then let's watch Inglourious Bastards. And then we watched it, and I'm not even paying any attention to this girl. I'm just like watching this movie again, and I'm like, what the hell was wrong with me the first time I watched this? Because I'm watching it again, and I'm like, this is the same movie, but I love this movie. This movie's amazing. It's incredible. And I was losing my mind over it. And that is the biggest thing of going from hating a movie to all of a sudden not just liking, but loving it. And Inglourious Bastards is now one of my absolute favorite Quentin Tarantino movies. And I'm like, was I in a bad mood the first time I went to go see it? Did I step on a nail? Was I having, I don't know, was I gassy that day that I was just in a bad, I don't know. But that's the one for me that really about faced for me was Inglourious Bastards. Anyway. Gabriel Reed writes, let's not forget Jason Isaacs' Oscar-winning performance in Armageddon. I don't care what anybody says. Armageddon is great. It was also the first DVD that my dad bought us when it came out. And you know what? I know a lot of people hate Armageddon and joke about Armageddon. Armageddon is probably my king of my guilty pleasure movies. I'm not going to, no one close my eyes. I love that movie. I love Armageddon. I do. There, I said it. Michael Clark Duncan, Ben Affleck, Bruce Willis. I love Armageddon. I feel like I should go to some kind of support group and say this. So I'm with you, Gabriel. All right, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, I got the Regal pass. Good on you, my friend. Due to SA San Antonio being a Regal-dominated area and enjoy it, but have one complaint. It's frustrating not being able to book tickets on behalf of another Regal member. If this doesn't change soon, I fear I may break my headphones. Well, listen, the Regal Unlimited Pass, and by the way, the best thing to happen to film fans in a long time is the advent of Regal Unlimited, AMC A-List, all that kind of stuff. Remember, AMC A-List was around for a long time. It had been around for a couple of years before they introduced the ability for you to book tickets on behalf of yourself and another AMC A-List member. They call it AMC Entourage now. So like before, me and my wife Ann, we both have AMC A-Lists, right? But when we wanted to go to a movie together, we would have to get on the AMC website and we'd have to book our tickets at the exact same time. And I have to go, okay, baby, I'm going to get seat M8. All right, you're going to get M9. Okay, we ready? Choreograph, 3, 2, 1, buy. Like you had to coordinate buying seats together. Now, AMC A-List gives you the opportunity to add other A-List members to a list that you have called your entourage. And that's them giving you permission, the other AMC A-lister members giving you permission to say, I can book tickets on their behalf. So now I've got a list of about 4 or 5 people on my AMC entourage so that when we want to have a movie night, I can go, oh yeah. So I'm going to book a ticket for me and Anne and Sol and Ryan and there. And now I've booked a ticket for them on their behalf because they've given me permissions to do it. But remember, it took AMC a little while to get that implemented. I don't doubt that Regal Unlimited at some point will implement that as well, but be patient with it. It's a new thing. It'll probably take a little bit of time. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Russell. Murray Reich writes, hey, John, I've sent 2 tips for Wednesday's show on Tuesday night, and for some reason they weren't on there that day. And you know what? I got an email from you, Murray, about that, and I went back and I found them. There were 3 or 4 questions, and I feel bad about this. There were 3 or 4 questions that were sent in overnight that I missed. Like, because there was about 30 or 40 questions sent in overnight, but there's 3 or 4 of them that were right side by side that I don't know why I skipped over. So I am going to get around to those ones, Murray, and I appreciate that. My apologies for that. That shouldn't happen. You guys support the channel and you send in a question. It's on me to make sure they get answered. And sometimes I miss one or whatever, and I apologize for that. But thank you for calling it to task. Anyway, I sent in 2 tips for Wednesday. So just so you know, Murray, I did find them, and I am going to get around to them. On Wednesday's show, and for some reason they weren't on that day. And every time I never have this issue, and I always get a PayPal receipt when I send it. Here are my top 10. Then Murray goes on to write, here are my top 10 disappointed movies of 2019. Number 9, Gemini Man. Number 9, Ad Napstra. I was so excited for Ad Astra, and to me it was a snorer. Number 8, Lego Movie. Yeah, I was so excited about Lego Movie 2, and I didn't think it was a terrible movie. It just compared to how much I liked the first one, it was kind of a big step down. Let's see. The Lion King. I love Lion King, so you and I will differ on that. Number 6, Brightburn. Yeah, I was disappointed. I love James Gunn, but I just couldn't get into Brightburn. Number 5, It Too. I was also very disappointed with that. Number 4, Us. I wasn't disappointed with Us. It just was nowhere near as good as his previous film, Get Out. So I still like Us, but whatever. 3, Terminator Dark Fate. Number 2, The Rise of Skywalker. And number 1, Glass. Yeah, I gotta tell you, other than Lion King, which I actually really loved, Glass, Rise of Skywalker, Terminator Dark Fate, It Chapter 2, Brightburn. Yeah, I gotta say, Murray, I'm with you on a lot. I was disappointed in a lot of those. I actually like Terminator Dark Fate better than most people do. I still got a kick out of it. I gotta admit, I still got a kick out of Terminator Dark Fate. But I totally but at the same time, it wasn't nearly as good as I was hoping it would be. All right. Murray also writes, my guilty pleasure movies of 2019. Oh, movie is Jexy. You know what? That was actually pretty damn funny. I'm glad I didn't see this first in theaters. It's so bad, but had some really funny moments. But worst movie of 2019 is Serenity with Matthew McConaughey. What an ending of that movie, huh? Oh my God, the ending of that movie is so bad. So bad from plot to acting to the terrible toilet bowl plot twist reveal. Yep. Yeah, I get it. And by the way, I think you're right about Jexy. I think Jexy is absolutely a terrible movie, but it's really funny. I mean, there are some really good laughs in that movie. You haven't seen Jexy yet. It's about the phone operating system. You should check it out. It's pretty funny. It's got the guy, I keep forgetting his name, but the guy from Workaholics, Adam Devine, I think is his name. Anyway, he's really good. He's actually really, really funny, even though the movie's not that good overall. Anyway. An anonymous viewer writes in, let me get this out of the way. So anonymous Reddit users around the internet can report it directly from the source. Any plans of re-releasing your documentary once it's finished? Hashtag release the Campea cut. Yeah, so I am working on a documentary right now. We've been in pre-production on it for a couple of months, and we actually start shooting next week. I'm so excited about that. And no, I can assure you there will be no Campea cut. It will be the movie that comes out is the movie that's going to come out, and that'll be it. But thank you for writing that in. All right, Murray Reich also writes, I saw a double header of Richard Jewell and Just Mercy. Just Mercy was so great that I love Michael B. Jordan's performance. Fox was also good, but Jordan carried the film 8 out of 10. Richard Jewell was pretty good, but it was Paul Walter Hauser's performance that was incredible. By the way, Paul Walter Hauser, I didn't really know him or pay attention to him much. He wasn't really on my radar until I, Tonya. And he, of course, is Sebastian Stan's best friend in I, Tonya, right? And he's so good in I, Tonya. It's like, and maybe I've seen him in other things and I just didn't remember, but that was the first movie for me that he really got put on my radar. And then in one of the best films of last year, there was, he appeared in Black Klansman. And again, he nearly steals every scene that he's in. Like, he nearly stole every scene he was in I, Tonya. And then he nearly stole every scene he was in again in Black Klansman, which he was wonderful in. And then to see him in this and actually getting lead stuff, it's really good. And I actually really like this guy. So that sounds like a really good doubleheader, Murray. Well on you. All right. Catholic Harloff writes, I really hate what Lucas did to Padme in episode 3. She was literally barefoot and pregnant in her house for nearly the entire movie. Her whole role was to cry and worry about Anakin. Then she died of a broken heart. Really? I hate that movie. Oh, listen, Catholic Harloff, you're talking to the wrong guy. I mean, you're let me rephrase. You're preaching to the choir. You know I hate that movie. I think episode 3, to be fair, is the least offensive of the prequels. I think it's the best film out of the prequels. I think it's the best film of the prequels. That said, I don't know what they were supposed to do with Padme. I mean, it felt like in this chapter 3, she was not the center of the story. And so they put the story focus on other characters. And I'm okay with that because they knew that movie had to end with her giving birth. Understanding that kind of puts your story in a certain situation. It's got to end with her giving birth. So where do you go with her with the rest of the movie? And it did need to highlight the fact that this whole dark side turn of Anakin was the fear of losing Padme. Now here I am. I hate this movie and I'm sitting here defending it. But honest, to be fair, like, so even though she didn't do a lot, she was still an absolute centerpiece of the film because all this, the major action, which is of course the turning of Anakin Skywalker to the dark side, the major action in the film all pivoted around her character. And of course, her being pregnant and needing to give birth at the end is part of it. So listen, I'm part of the choir. I don't like this movie either, but I will defend certain things about it because I think they handled it the right way. I still don't like it, but I think they handled it kind of the right way. But I understand your frustration, Catholic Harloff, and I've heard other people say the same thing, so you're in good company. All right, David Dixon writes, Hey, John, love the show for years. Thank you so much, David Dixon. A thought. The Bond score of the Craig era typically revolves around a melody or sound of the official bum, 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 for each movie. If that is already completed, Zimmer's job would be a little easier to do in a short time. Here's the thing. That's cool for one or two pieces in the movie. But the movie is going to be 2+ hours. And a lot of these bigger movies, they have music playing through about 90% of the film. So yes, the opening theme, maybe not so hard because you're going to get some musician to do a theme song, then the scoring of it. And yes, but some musicians might actually argue that having to incorporate that classical Bond theme, ba 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 ba, having to put that all in there actually makes the job even harder because you're trying to create something new and fresh while implementing some of those familiar elements. So maybe it'll work to it. You might be onto something, David. Maybe it'll work in Hans Zimmer's benefit. It might actually be a little bit of a hindrance. We'll have to wait and see, buddy. All right. Gray Shot 117 writes, last night I saw Tremors. Oh my God, I love Tremors. By the way, what's the name of the movie? The Adventure Begins. Something Remo Williams. Remo Williams. I hadn't seen that guy since like Remo Williams. Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. If you've never seen Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, my God, make sure you go watch that. Anyway, last night I saw Tremors at the Alamo Drafthouse for its 30th anniversary. With the crowd quoting along and special Tremors drinks, it was a blast to attend. What film would you love to see in theaters that you missed during its initial run? Oh, that's easy. Easy. Not my favorite movie of all time, not one of the greatest motion pictures ever made, but a movie I never got to see in theaters, and I still to this day love this film, and I would love to see it on the big screen with an audience, and that is Mystery Men. Hank Azaria, William H. Macy, Ben Stiller, Paul Rubens, Jeannie Garofalo. That was a movie that was so far ahead of its time. Mystery Men was so far ahead of its time. I'm the invisible boy, but I can only turn invisible when nobody's looking at me. It's like, wait a minute, what? He can only turn invisible when nobody's looking at him. And that's what he does. I love that. Now, obviously, one of my favorites, and I do this about once every 1 or 2 years, one of my favorite movies to go back to theater and watch with an audience is Princess Bride. It's always a blast when one of the theaters in Los Angeles does a screening of Princess Bride. It always packs out, always a good time. But one that I haven't seen on the big screen that I would love is Mystery Men. All right, great shot. 117 also writes, also with Tremors being released in January, aka dumping month, I would consider it one of the best hidden gems ever released in January. What other hidden gems have you found / recommend that were released with little fanfare, whether in January or not? Oh, that's tough. It's a good question, Gray Shot, but it's tough for me to just, that's not like stuff I just carry around on the top of my head. Like, I often talk about like, oh my God, this little film, none of you saw it, it's great, blah. But to carry that stuff around off the top of my head is a tough one. Tremors really is, though, to your point, one of these amazing little films that didn't find the appreciation it deserved until long after it was out of theaters. Like, long after it was out of theaters did it really start to get the credit it deserved. And there are many films like that, again, and even though it's a great question, Great Shot, it's not a list I keep off the top of my head, but it's a great question nonetheless. All right, Kobe writes, I found the Bard character in the Witcher series annoying and sometimes took me out of the show. What are your thoughts on him? Toss a coin to Witcher. Listen, I'll tell you what. I was in complete agreement with you. When they first introduced the character, I thought, oh, it's Paul Bettany's character from A Knight's Tale. They decided they needed their own Paul Bettany character from A Knight's Tale in this movie. How quaint. And yes, I agree. At first, I didn't like him at all. Maybe even the first 2 full episodes he was in, I didn't like him at all. I will say that the character grew on me. The character grew on me as they went. And a character like that was kind of necessary because, look, as great of a character as Yennefer is, Yennefer doesn't ground, Geralt in his humanity. Yennefer is just too fantastical of a character to actually ground him in any way, shape, or form to his humanity. You needed another character that was going to be an anchor for Geralt of Rivia to his humanity. And I found they used that Bard character, and I can't remember the Bard character's name, partially to do that and partially to have a little bit of comic relief. And while I was with you 100% at first, I got to admit it kind of grew on me. I got to admit the character grew on me as the show progressed. So how I'll feel about him in season 2, I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. But I do love the show, man. I totally love the show. Triple J's Thoughts writes, a supportive tip to you, sir. Just so you know, as a Canadian, you are not alone. We don't know how to change a tire too. Plus, did not like Lady Bird, fell asleep. Gonna see 1917 tomorrow. Lastly, my wife is flying Swoop from Halifax. Fingers crossed. Dude, there's a whole lot in that message. Yeah, I'll never fly Swoop again. Actually, I never did fly Swoop. I never even got the chance to get on the damn plane. But I won't go into all of that drama again because I was rightly upset about that. And I feel like, listen, Triple J, you and me are 2 of the only people in the world that didn't like Lady Bird. Lady Bird is a beloved film. Got nominated for Best Picture, got Greta a Best Director nomination. That's great. Everybody loved it, so that's awesome. But it was just one that I watched and I'm like, I can't take it. I can't take it. And I had to dip out. So you and me, Triple J, I think you and me are like the only 2 people in the world. And I'm glad everybody loves it. I want everybody to love every movie, even if it's a movie I don't like. But yeah, you and me, buddy, are like 2 of the only people in the world that did not like Lady Bird. All right. James Germain writes, Happy New Year, John. I heard people were disappointed with Powerless Clark in the DC crossover event. Me personally, I think that was a good idea considering that Smallville Superman is just too overpowered for the event. He moved a plane with his bare hands. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, for those of you guys who watch me regularly, you know, I'm a big fan every year of the Arrowverse crossover series. They do an Arrowverse crossover event every year, and I always like it. Some years more than others. I have not been able to get on board with this Crisis on Infinite Earths because I feel like they just didn't care about the story of it. To me, it feels like it's just like, oh, let's just throw everything in there. Let's just take the kitchen sink. Let's put Smallville in there. Yay! He served no purpose. Let's put Lucifer in there, which I love Lucifer. He's my favorite character on television right now. But it's like, at the end of the day, it didn't serve any purpose. He was there for a 2-minute scene, then he was gone, and then what he was there for ended up not being useful to the story. And it was like, so what was the point? And I feel like the whole thing has just been, look, the Arrow crossover series every year has a degree of fan service. Let's admit that. I understand that. But they limit how much it's just fan service, right? They limit how much it's just fan service. And I kind of felt like this whole thing has just been kind of incoherent, gibberish fan service that hasn't made me feel the sense. It feels like a quick one-shot episode of something. I don't know. It just hasn't worked for me. So I thought they should have done, if you're going to have Tom Welling there, you don't have to make him a main character, but have him do something relevant. Whether he has powers or not, make him do something relevant to the story. And I found they didn't do that. It was just, hey, everybody, look, it's Tom Welling. Okay, bye, Mr. Welling. Thanks for coming by. And then he was gone, and that's what frustrated me. All right, Firth Latham writes, you'll break the internet if he announces he's stepping down and selling the company to you, but realistically, I just hope you have a good conversation. No, listen, I don't know. I know there was some internet rumor going around before that I was worth, I can't remember what it was, that I was worth like $4 million or something like that. It's like, I showed that to my wife and she goes, I showed this thing on the internet saying like John Campea is worth like I can't remember what the number was, something like $4 million. And I showed it to my, I say, hey, because Ann and I were in the back of an Uber at the time and we were on our way to something. I said, honey, hey, take a look at this. Did you know this? And I showed her the amount of $4 million. She looked at me, she goes, have you been holding out on me? I'm like, I don't know, maybe. I don't have the money to buy that back from Marc. At this point, I don't know that I would, but even if I had the money, I don't know that I would buy it back from Marc, to be honest with you at this point. No, that Firth is probably not going to happen. Faye Haberfeld writes, what did you think of Just Mercy? Loved it. I thought the story itself was formulaic and predictable. I mean, knowing where a movie is going to go, to me, is not the criteria about what is a predictable movie. Because look, you go into Titanic, you know the Titanic sinks at the end. Does that make it a predictable movie? I mean, you know going into Endgame, they're going to fix everything and everybody's coming back. You knew that. You knew that going into Endgame. Does knowing what the ending destination is, does that make it whatever? You watch a movie about Ted Bundy, you know that he murders a bunch of people, he ends up getting convicted. Does that make it a predictable? To me, a movie being predictable is the beat by beat revelation of information. When everything in a movie beat by beat becomes easily predictable in its information that each step of the beat represents, that to me makes it a predictable film. Do you know just by watching the trailers what kind of the end of Just Mercy is going to be? Of course you do. But it to me was still, that didn't make it a predictable movie. To me at any rate. Anyway, but I ended up loving the film because of the performances. Jamie Foxx, Rob Morgan, Tim Blake, Nelson absolutely killed it. And listen, Michael B. Jordan continues to show why he is one of the best. He's not young anymore, but youngish, I guess you could say, talents in the business. From Fruitvale Station to Creed, all the way up to now, he's just continues to show he's one of the developing best of the business, and I love watching him. Jamie Foxx has been really good for a long time. Faye also writes, when do you plan on watching 1917? I did finally that was one of the just 2 films left that I needed to watch, and I knocked that one out last night. Loved it, by the way. When do you plan on seeing 1917 and Little Women? That's the one I still have to do. I might actually sneak out and see Little Women tonight. I really like 1917, but it's more of a technical achievement than anything else. The characters are flat. Little Women was boring in my opinion, but the chemistry between the leads made me enjoy it. I will say this. When I walked out of 1917 with my wife, Ann said, I said, what do you think? She goes, it might be one of my favorite movies ever, which is big. My wife is not one of those people who every time she sees something good, she goes, that's the greatest thing ever. She's not one of those people. So for her to say that might be one of my favorite films ever, that says a lot. I have to admit that when I walked out, at first, it wasn't the story of it that I found myself thinking about over and over again. And maybe I will once I think about it a little bit more. But when I walked out, I was like, how the F did they make this movie? How did they make this movie? It was just so breathtakingly, you're right, from a technical standpoint, it was breathtaking and amazing. And that's what has occupied my mind the most since seeing it. more than the story itself. That doesn't mean the story isn't good. It's just that the technical achievement was so remarkable from a direction and cinematography and a beat pacing sort of view that I'm just like, that's what I've been completely focused on. And maybe I'll think a little bit more about the story later on when I have some more chance to think about it. Movies and Fart Joke 69 writes, do you think ketchup on eggs is bad? I think it's horrible. I think it's revolting. I've got a friend who likes to put ketchup on his French toast. Oh my God. Clearly he's a psychopath. Keep it filthy and stay sweaty, my friends. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, yeah, for those of you who don't know, I will never understand people who put ketchup on eggs. That to me, I literally almost, like Ann and I were at, we took Ann's mom out for breakfast. I can't remember, a week or two ago. And she got her eggs, Ann's mom, my mother-in-law, who I love, and grabbed the ketchup. And I'm like, as she grabbed the ketchup and took off the top, it was like me movie moment, slow-mo, as the camera pushes in and pulls out at the same time, and my mouth going in slow motion. No! As she's pouring ketchup on eggs. And I dry heave a little bit whenever I see it. Like, it's that revolting to me. But hey, some people love it. And if you love it, that's great. But I get the heaves when I just think about it. Anyway, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I really hope Fernandez is on the show when you read this. Unfortunately, no, he's not here at this point. Marc, I'm not a businessman, but I've always tried to be more involved in my work environment. I want you that I don't blame you for what happened. You did what you had to do, and I get it. Rise. Well, that's very kind of you to say, 50 Shades. That's very kind. And unfortunately, of course, he's not here to hear that, but that's very kind of you to say. Thanks for sending that in. Also, Marc, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie too. Let's have a discussion. By the way, Marc is a supporter and a defender of the prequel films, whereas I am not. So that's also one of our differences. Not why we got into a fist fight at ArcLight Cinemas in Hollywood. Not about that, but we do have a different opinion on that. 50 Shades also writes, I don't think I've ever seen Campea and Fernandez on the same show together. This should be interesting. I can't wait to see it, John. Would you consider having more Collider/SCN guests on your show in the future? 2020 looks really exciting. No, probably not. Not because they're not all great. It's just that I don't have any intention of making AMC Movie Talk or Collider 2.0. I don't have any intention of doing that. And of course, you see, Christian Harloff pops on my show once in a while. Actually, he's going to pop on the show. You're going to see him in a short segment on the show here tomorrow. So Christian and I have stayed friends for a long time, and there's some stuff of that. But no, I don't ever see me going out of my way to bring in people from there who weren't there. Not because I don't think they're great. It's just that my intention here is not to create Collider 2.0. My show, and I've always endeavored to do this from the day that I left Collider, was that I wanted my show to have my identity. And I think that's part of the reason why we've been able to quote unquote succeed, depending how you define success, I guess. So I wouldn't look, I'm not completely shut off to anything, but I wouldn't look out for that because it's not something that's on my radar right now. 50 Shades also writes, it's nice of you to let us know a day in advance that Marc will be on the show. Now I can think of my questions ahead of time. As someone who lives in a different time zone, it's very important to me, even though the show might be over when you get to me. Not a problem. And I wanted to make sure everybody knew that he was going to be here. And listen, it's no secret. I have some real issues with Marc. I have some real issues personally with certain things that's been done with and to Collider Video to be specific over the years. But full kudos. I thought it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? I thought it was very ballsy of Marc to, number one, do that stream that he did. I thought that was very ballsy to do, even though I told him it was a train wreck. Let's call it what it is. That live stream he did was an absolute train wreck. But I still think it was ballsy for him to do it. And I think it was ballsy for him to come on this show. And I told him, look, I'm going to be very honest with my questions to you when you come on. And he said, okay, I understand that. And he came anyway. So while I have a lot of disagreements, and clearly, look, Marc and I have a very broken relationship. Our relationship broke the day he did that last town hall meeting a couple of years ago. Our relationship broke. Is it always going to be broke? Maybe, maybe not. But he was right when he said that I still care about that brand. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't give two squirts of piss about the brand. The reality is I do. I'm a human being. I poured over 5 years of my life into building and developing that place. That is still a brand that has a place in my heart. And I respected what Marc Fernandez was trying to do with that town hall meeting he did the other day. It was clearly a train wreck, but I respected what he was trying to do. And I don't know if it's because of my love for the brand. I don't know if it's because of the 5+ years that I tried building the place. I don't know if it's because I felt sorry for Marc. I don't know what the specifics of it were, but I felt like the right thing for me to do, and maybe it was stupid, but I felt like at the time the right thing for me to do was to reach out to him, say, I understand and respect what you're trying to do, but it was a train wreck. Would you like another opportunity, maybe with me? Because look, Marc's primary skills are not being a communicator. And so I thought, I reached out to him and said, would you like to try it again? This time with me being on camera with you to help direct it a little bit so you can be a little bit more focused and maybe get what it is you're trying to say across more effectively. I felt like that was the right thing to do. And I'll be honest, I didn't know how today was going to turn out. You know, Marc walked into my house this morning. We didn't even talk on the phone. Marc and I have not spoken in years. Not since we had to be physically pulled apart from each other at ArcLight Cinemas in Hollywood. And so I didn't know what to expect from today. I think it was positive. I'll leave it to you guys to decide whether it was good or bad, but I feel positive about it. So anyway, there's that. Thanks for writing that in. Let's see here. Kenneth Colton writes, hey, John, I saw on Twitter you asked Collider if you could have the Movie Talk name back. As it stands now, what are the odds that it will happen? Not good. And you know, it's fair. Marc said that he thinks he might have future plans for the Movie Talk name. And if that's the case, God bless. I just don't want the name to die. You know what I mean? I just don't want the name to die because I spent a lot of years building it. So no, I don't think he's about to give it back to me. I mean, as I was walking him out during the break, he said, you know, and I'm serious, I'd like for us to talk about maybe some kind of partnership and getting the Movie Talk name going again. I'll tell him this. I didn't have a chance to tell him as I was seeing him out. I don't know that that's of any interest to me. I never say never to anything, but on its surface, that doesn't sound like it's of interest to me. So I think it's probably unlikely. I think it is probably unlikely that you'll see me get the Movie Talk name back, which is fine because and honestly, if he really does think he can do something with it later, all I'm concerned about is that the name will live on somewhere, some way, somehow. That's my main concern. So if he's going to make it live on later, I'm all good with it. I honestly am. I'm totally good with it. So there's that. All right. Kenneth Colton also writes, don't know if Marc will see this, but in the light of Simple Jack's comments, I think I speak for most fans that he should be let go. Trying to be civil, but he crossed a line. Props to Marc for coming out. Listen, let me say something here. And this is not going to be popular. This is not going to be popular. My phone has been blowing up. I'm sorry, guys. This is not going to be popular, what I'm going to say. I would have been completely okay if he had let Jack go, because it was, from a PR point of view, it was pretty egregious. But like I said on the show, it's not like he ran out the front door of Collider's offices with a baseball bat and beat a puppy to death. He said some stupid things. Is that enough to fire a guy over? Hey, if it's a new intern that had been there for a few weeks, then yeah, maybe you do that. If it's a guy you've had for a couple of years and this is the first real public dipshit thing he's done, maybe you use it as a learning experience. Look, I don't want to preach here, but listen, there was this great story about an IBM executive. There was an IBM junior vice president who made this mistake once. He was supposed to commit to something that was going to cost $100 million. He made the mistake and accidentally committed to $10 million. Cost IBM $10 million, if I'm remembering the story correctly. And when he was called into one of the president's offices, he was sure he was about to get fired. But the president went over the mistake with them and said, all right, well, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. To which the junior vice president who made the $10 million mistake said, you're not firing me. Really? You're not firing me? To which the president responded, firing you? Kid, I just spent $10 million on your education. I can't afford to fire you. And I think there might be something to that with this Jack Hind kid. Again, I'll never work with this kid, but that's me because I've got personal feelings involved with it. But he made a really stupid mistake. He paid for it. The company paid for it. So now what do? Do you let him go, or do you go, hopefully he has learned from this and hopefully he's going to be a better team member, however big his leadership role is or not. Hopefully now moving forward, he will be a better team member than before. Maybe he will be a more valuable employee now that he's had this very public and very harsh education moving forward. If Marc came in here and told me they fired the kid, I wouldn't have had any problem with that. But I got to tell you, from my point of view, as probably somebody who was as angry at his comments as anybody, I also have no problem with Marc saying this was an education. There is discipline that's being handled, but we're going to move forward now. We're going to consider this a learning experience, and we're going to move forward. I can accept that, and I appreciate that. And there's that. That's just, and I know a lot of you will disagree, and that's cool. But I'm very hesitant to pull the fire them trigger when somebody does something stupid publicly. And, but yeah, again, I would have been fine if he fired him. I'm okay that he didn't. All right. Thunder Rabbit writes, "Good day, John. Greetings from a scorched down under." And again, all thoughts and well wishes to everybody and all of our viewers who are in Australia. I know we have a lot of you guys who watch the show. And honestly, I mean, for those of you who are not, go educate yourselves about what's going on in Australia. Make a donation to the relief efforts over there. It's some tragic stuff. So stay safe, everybody. Is Light Side, Dark Side show with Christian and yourself coming back? We love watching when we can. We've addressed this a few times, Thunder Rabbit. You probably missed it. But there were a few things that came up. Christian and I, we wanted to do a show together. And you're going to see Christian do a guest spot on my show tomorrow. Just a small one, but he's going to do a guest spot on my show tomorrow. But the reality was, I had this movie of mine come up that was going to take a lot of time. Christian had something very exciting come up with him that I don't think he's made public yet, so I'm not going to say what it is, but Christian had something very, really significant come up. On top of that, we realized we don't know when the next Star Wars thing is even coming. On top of that, I think Christian said this on his show, so it's okay for me to say it because he said this on a show. I think Christian's lost some of his love for talking about Star Wars for several different reasons. So all that wrapped up into one made us decide to pull the plug on the show. That's not to say that I won't bring, whether it's called Dark Side, Light Side, or Star Wars Talk Tuesdays or whatever, that's not to say that I won't bring it back once something actual Star Wars related starts to come up again. Maybe I will. But for now, it's on the shelf. So I appreciate you asking. We have addressed it a few times, but I don't mind you asking again. All right. James Bonner writes, "Hey, Marc," who is no longer here, obviously. "I just wanted to say, after watching some of your town hall the other day and hearing a bit more clarity on your side of the situation, I've resubscribed to Collider Channel and wish for you and everyone nothing but a positive outcome." That's really good. Look, a lot of people aren't going to do that, but maybe some people will. And I think the important thing here is we don't need to have somebody do what we would do, because maybe there's a lot of us that wouldn't have done what Marc did. But I think it's always beneficial when we can at least understand that why they do what they do, even if it's not what we would do. So I think there's something there to that. And I think it's very kind of you to write, James. I think it's very kind of you to write. All right, Chris Parker writes, "One of three. I think the Eisner-Iger debate is interesting. Iger had of course, we're talking about the former and the current high Grand Poobah chairman of Disney. I think the Eisner-Iger debate is interesting. Iger has had the Midas touch since becoming CEO, but he was passed a very nice baton. It was under Eisner's stewardship that their floundering animation studio had their renaissance period. That's true. Eisner had expanded the theme park business across the world. He oversaw the purchases of ABC and ESPN, and he grew the company from a $2 billion market cap in 1984 to a $46 billion market cap when he stepped down, a multiple of growth that Iger has a long way to go to match. Love Iger and all that he has done, but I think his success has overshadowed Eisner's contribution somewhat. Without Eisner, Disney would look a lot different today. And I think that's absolutely fair to say. I think you always have to look at what came before when properly understanding and putting into context what it is you have now. I think that's very important. We were talking about the debate the other day about who was more important to the Avengers, Joss Whedon or the Russo brothers. I make the argument, very much like you are now, I made the argument that Joss Whedon was more important. Joss Whedon, with his first Avengers movie, set the tone for what the entire MCU was going to be coming afterwards. He set the template of what the dynamics between the characters are and what a movie can look like when you bring all these different characters into the same movie and how they can interact and how you can balance screen time and all this kind of stuff. And the Russo brothers essentially came in and stood on Joss Whedon's shoulders and built upon what he established. And I love the work the Russo brothers did. So I totally can relate with what you're saying about the Eisner and Iger thing. I still think Iger is the superior CEO. That being said, I think you're absolutely 100% on the money when you say we need to take into consider what Michael Eisner did as far as the place that Disney was in when Bob Iger stepped in. And so I think it's a very, very good thing to bring up. All right. Kieran Shingler writes, "Hey, John, hope all is well. All is well. Thank you so much. Totally sympathize with the Collider incident. What that guy said at best showed a lack of experience and at worst exercised a very low level of emotional intelligence. However, knowing what people can be like on social media, that we need to be responsible here and state not to victimize the person in question. We're all human at the end of the day and we all make mistakes." Listen, I think that is one of the things that we all need to keep in mind. And I said this during my little meltdown crybaby rant video that I made, was that we all do and say stupid things sometimes. We all do it. I have said and done stupid things. Listen, I've put up tweets before that I thought was clearly in fun, right? I've done this. I've done it, and I bet money you've done it too. I have put out tweets before that I thought was kind of in fun. And then I tweet it, and then like 30 seconds later, I'm reading the tweet on my Twitter, because, you know, I'm like everybody else. I put up a tweet. Ooh, is anybody liking my tweet? You know, that pathetic thing we all do. Anyway, so I'm looking at it again about 30 seconds later, and I read it again. I'm like, this isn't coming across as fun. It's coming across as mean. And then I've gone, okay, no, I need to delete this. Because I intended it for it to sound fun, but now that I'm looking at it on my Twitter page, I'm like, that actually sounds like I'm saying something mean. And I decided to pull it down. I've been there. I bet you've been there too. Jack's thing went a little bit further than that, and he insulted a lot of people, and there was nothing in fun about it, and it was derogatory and it was terrible. But to your point, Kian, yeah, we all do. We all make stupid mistakes. The difference between Jack and a lot of us is that Jack happened to be in a very public situation where a lot of eyeballs were on it. You know, sometimes when somebody puts up a tweet, they have 15 followers and nobody cares and it's okay. And nobody knows that they did or said something stupid. Jack was in a position that when he did something stupid, it was there for the world to see. And I don't take back a single thing I said in my video. I was righteously angry, and I still believe 100% I had every right to be as angry as I was and am. But at the same time, I don't want to pretend like he ran out the front door of Collider with a baseball bat and beat a baby puppy to death. You know, it's putting things in context a little bit. Anyway, thanks for writing that, Kian. All right. Muse Tack Reviews writes, honestly, I think you turned a lot of people around, Marc, with the town hall. Many now realize you're just human and that you have to make hard choices. Also, any hint at potential new shows on Collider? I listen, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that Marc did a very good job of turning a lot of people around on that. And that was part of my frustration. Number one, I was frustrated at some of the things he was saying, but as somebody who knows him, despite the fact that his relationship and mine is a very rocky one. But I know him pretty well because I worked with him for a few years. And as I was watching him do that train wreck of a town hall, I could tell, and I think people who worked with him could tell, we could see what it is he was trying to say. And I could appreciate some of the things that he was trying to say. And I honestly thought Marc did, I said this to him as he was leaving. I said, I think you did a really good job today of articulating what it is your mindset is. And I personally, I want to give kudos to Marc. I think he did do a very good job today of articulating, we may or may not agree with what Marc is doing or has done or whatever. We may not agree, but I think we can at least say he did a pretty good job today of at least a much better job today of articulating what his thought process was, what he's thinking now, some of the lessons he's been learning, things like that. So I think he deserves all the kudos in the world for that. All right, Blake writes, I wanted to echo a comment yesterday about Lost Stars, the Star Wars book that is absolutely fantastic. The book gives fantastic context to the war, the rebellion, the Empire War. The vast majority of soldiers in the Empire had no idea it was evil. They thought they were fighting for peace and order. It's such a great book. Again, if you have not read Lost Stars and you're a big Star Wars fan, read Lost Stars. I can't remember the name of the author. Something Gray is the name of the author, but it's wonderful, and the background of the story is great, and I'm glad you're giving it some props there, Blake. All right, Mark Hansen writes, so sad to hear the great Buck Henry. Yeah, I saw that. So sad to hear about the great Buck. I'm sure that Rob will have something to say about that tomorrow. About the great Buck Henry's passing, I remembered him from the early SNL days and that he worked with Mel Brooks on Get Smart, but never realized he also wrote The Graduate, which is like probably his crowning achievement. And What's Up, Pussycat? I really want to go watch some Get Smart now. Yeah, and that was something that, unfortunately, with us not doing a regular show today, is something that got brushed under the rug. But again, I'm sure Robert's going to want to bring that up and talk about that a little more. He really was one of the more unknown giants. You know, there are giants that we all know, and then there are some unknown giants. And I think for a lot of the audience today, Buck Henry was one of the unknown giants, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. Thanks for that. JCL Productions writes, hey, John, 7-year watcher. Thank you so much, man, for being around for that long. Rewatched the AMC 100 million view party, and the show you guys cover, The Force Awakens, still so good in 2019. I meant Vet. Still my favorite YouTube show is yours. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. And that was a great night. Like, we just did our John Campea YouTube channel 100 million view party, and it was so great and special. But that 100 million view party night when we were still AMC Movie Talk, that was a really great night. That was a great night. I know there are a lot of you guys who are viewers of the show. You actually got to be there at it. It was such a great night. So thanks for bringing that up, JCL. It's always good to have a little bit of nostalgia there. JCL also writes, one more thing. What is your new documentary about? Is Robert editing it? Is Chris doing the voiceover in her Mickey Mouse voice? We need to know. I am not yet ready to tell people what my documentary is about. I'm going to keep that under wraps for now, but probably in the next 2 to 3 months, I'll let you know, because I'm going to start shooting next week. We actually start shooting it. We've been in pre-production for months now. We're going to start shooting it next week. It's probably going to end up being a big piece of shit movie, so who cares? But I'm doing it, so I'm proud of it. I will let you guys know probably in a couple of months what it's about. Robert is not editing it. Robert will be involved in the film. But that's all I can say for now. But thank you for asking, JCL. I appreciate that. All right, James Christie writes, why not John heads up the movie news division and Marc oversees experimental videos and overall company? John equals Alan Horn, Marc equals Bob Iger type of relationship. I think, James, that is something that we tried. I think that's something that we tried. And I'm not going to lie to you. Listen, even when Marc came in, I was the head of programming. I mean, every show that we did, we're going to do, all that kind of stuff, that all ran through me. And Marc knew, and I think this is fair for me to say, Marc knew at the time that I was really not down with some of the things he wanted to do. And knowing that I wasn't down for some of the things he wanted to do, he wanted to try to push me out of all the other things. So I remember him coming to me and saying, wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to worry about all this other stuff and you just worried on Movie Talk? How about we just make your job just doing Movie Talk and you don't have to worry about anything else and you keep the same salary and all that kind of stuff. But I knew what he was doing. He was trying to push me out of everything else. But see, I understand that Movie Talk could only be as healthy as the whole channel was. And so if I was going to be there, I needed to make sure I had influence over everything that was going on in the channel. And I just realized, look, I'm not happy. I don't want to go in the direction that the owner wants to go. And I shouldn't be a hindrance to the owner wanting to do what they want to do, because maybe what they want to do is the right thing, and maybe it'll be best for the channel and for the company. And one of the things I told Marc, and I wrote about this when I left Collider, was, listen, if I stay here, I'm just going to be an obstruction to what you want to do. I'm going to be a hindrance to what you want to do. I'm going to be fighting back against what you want to do if I'm here. That's not going to make me happy. It's not going to make you happy. So Again, I believe that the health of an individual show is also partially, it's in a symbiotic relationship with the health of a whole channel. And if the whole channel isn't going in the right direction, I don't know that a single show can continue to be healthy. So that is something that we did try before, James. Not something that I'm interested in, at least at this point in my life. Not something that I'm interested in doing again. I mean, look, I'm never going to say never. Marc Fernandez calls me tomorrow and says, John, you know what? I'm going to be an NFL owner. You be Bill Belichick. I'll be Robert Kraft, you be Bill Belichick. I'll own it, but you come in and run it. You make it the way you want to make it. You do what you want to do with it, and I'll just support it. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, Marc's got a lot of resources. He's a smart business. Like, I've got some criticisms with things he's done with my channel and everything. With his channel, with Collider. But he's also made a lot of money. He's also made some pretty smart business decisions in his life. He's a smart guy. And so he's got a lot of resources. I don't know, but I'm never going to say never, but that is not something to me, James, that immediately jumps up and appeals to me, just to say. Dustin Barton writes, hey, Marc, can John use the Movie Talk name now? Again, we sort of covered that. Who knows? Again, maybe in 2 weeks, Marc calls me and says, you know what? I realize we're never going to use the Movie Talk name. So instead of it just sitting around collecting dust, why don't you take it back? Maybe he'll do that. But if he's got plans for Movie Talk, I'm all for him keeping it. I really am. As long as the name gets kept alive, then I'm okay with it. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, defending myself, I went to sleep last night after the main topics, woke up and saw Fernandez will be on the show, sent a few questions, yes you did, then got the part of the show that you said you're not taking fan questions from Marc, but it was too late. No problem, dude. I totally understand. I mean, I did mention that, the Marc part was just going to be us interacting. I wasn't going to throw it open to questions with Marc here because I thought that could potentially get pretty messy. And I thought I already knew the questions I wanted to ask him. And I thought the questions I was going to ask him were pretty much going to be reflective of the questions that you guys were going to ask him. At least keeping it to the topic at hand. So that's why we didn't go that direction. But that's totally cool, 50 Shades. Don't worry about it. 50 Shades writes, I'm the bad guy and I'm here to stomp your face with my butt. John Campea 2020. Put on a t-shirt. Yeah, for those of you who weren't there, that was something I said on the show. It's like, some movie villains are great. I mean, some movie villains don't have to be complicated. They can just be, hey, I'm the bad guy. I'm here to stomp your face with my butt. I don't know why I said that. It just kind of came out. That's kind of what happens with me sometimes. All right. A fan of Peanuts writes, opinion, his passion must be as a strength. Movie Talk was neither his of these, period. Why invest your money into something you've already lost in? I think, listen, you can invest, if you see something as a smart investment, it doesn't have to necessarily be something you're passionate about, right? I remember when Google was being taken public and was going to have stocks that you could buy. I was not particularly passionate about Google, but I knew it was a good investment. And, so you can know that. And I think Marc saw it as an opportunity that it could be a good investment. Even if he wasn't totally passionate about certain things, the idea is you bring in other people that can carry the things that you don't have expertise on. If I had to offer a criticism of the way Collider was managed in recent years, you know what? I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to keep that part to myself for now. But I think you don't have to be passionate about everything about it. You can focus on the things that you're really passionate about, but then bring in people who are passionate about that other stuff and let them, under you, run those things passionately with expertise. I don't know if that was one of their strong suits in recent years, but in some cases, yes. I don't know. It's a difficult thing. A good observation there. All right. Adam Smith writes, in a VFX breakdown of Endgame, I noticed those spacesuits they wore were CGI. Is it really cheaper / easier to have a VFX team create them digitally rather than make some suits for them to wear? It's a good question. I mean, let's take Cats, for example. Cats became a worldwide famous name because of a Broadway show, and they just wore physical costumes. I will say, though, I think the characters look fantastic. The visual effects on it is great. I also, when I started hearing about there were scenes that the suits they were wearing were all CGI. I'm like, was that really necessary? I don't know. Look, when you're asking, is it really cheaper to do it this way than that way? It depends on the scene. It depends on what's happening in the scene. Because then, like for instance, with Superman's cape, right? In Man of Steel, most of the time that you see Superman in Man of Steel, the cape is CG. It's not real. So you might say to yourself, understandably, wouldn't it just be easier to put a cape on the costume? Yes, but Zack Snyder had a specific vision of what he wanted the cape to do and all this kind of stuff. And instead of just pointing a fan at it and hope it does the right thing, he thought having the cape be CGI would have the material of the cape and everything move and flow in such a way that would be more dramatic and impactful on screen and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of that type of mentality might have gone into the CGI suits on Avengers as well. So I'd have to know the specifics of each individual scene to know for sure, which I don't think any of us do. But there could be very, very good. Listen, movie studios, even Disney, don't like to spend money they don't need to spend. So if they spent the money on CGing the suit, there was probably pretty damn good reasons for it. That's all I'm going to say, because even Disney doesn't like to spend money they don't have to spend. So there was probably a pretty good reason for it. But again, it all depends on the individual situation, so that's as much as I can speculate. All right, next up, Jay Bling writes, on one hand, I like that Hans Zimmer will now be being involved in scoring both Bond and Mission Impossible films. On the other hand, another risk of a short timetable is that he could end up rehashing old scores. And, somebody else brought that up. Look, the advantage of a James Bond thing with the bum 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 all that kind of stuff is that it's there and you can use it and incorporate it. And he would be wise to do so. But hopefully we don't go into some of these 4 movies he's now composing this year and we start to hear totally similar themes overlapping each other. It is a little bit of a worry of mine too, Jay Bling. I think it's a good observation. All right. 50 Shades of Geek writes, do you or Ann know when Baby Yoda dolls will be available in stores, preferably before May, my mom's birthday? Ann probably knows. Look, Ann does not share with me insider information at Hasbro. You might think she does. She really doesn't. Ann will not discuss anything that's supposed to be proprietary or secret information at Hasbro with me. Nor should she. She absolutely shouldn't. And she doesn't. So she probably knows when you're going to get full-fledged Baby Yoda dolls in stores. I don't, though, right now. So I'll ask her and I'll tell you what. I will ask her and I'll find out if it's something she's allowed to say. Because, we're releasing it in June, and they're totally allowed to say that. Then I'll let you guys know. Otherwise, we may all be in the dark for a while. All right, Jesse Keller writes, hey, John and Mark, who is, of course, not here right now. I was wondering if y'all had talked about reverting the name Movie Talk back to John. I watched Movie Talk ever since 2011 and still watched till its death. I'd like to see it live on somewhere else. And so what I can tell you, Jesse, is that why we did not verbally discuss it, there were some texts exchanged in the last day or two about that topic because he had seen my tweet that I put out about, hey, Collider, if you're not using Movie Talk and it's just going to collect dust, I could do something with it. So it doesn't sound like that's what's going to happen. And I'm okay with that as long as they go ahead and use it sometime in the future. If they're not going to use it, then fuck yes, just give me back the name. It's mine anyway. I came up with it. Give it back to me. But if you're going to use it, then God bless. I think by all means, keep using it. So we'll see what happens. All right. Winso writes, you can't make Carnage sympathetic. No artsy fartsy. No, I agree. Like we were talking about on a companion video the other day about, are villains better to be sympathetic villains or just pure nasty villains? And what my argument was is it depends on the movie. But yes, I believe Carnage is one of those villains that is just evil, and you just go Carnage with evil. I agree with you on that. All right. Oliver Sue writes, hey, John, big fan of your show. Thank you so much, Oliver. I'm a huge Charlie Chaplin fan. Yes. Do you like to watch his movies or silent movies in general? If so, what are your favorite? My favorites are The Kid and City Lights. I love The Dictator. Hold a second. I want to make sure I got the name right. let me 100% make sure. Hold a sec. Yeah, it was The Dictator. I love The Dictator. I thought that was a movie that was so far ahead of its time. And honestly, I believe the commentary in The Dictator is something that we as a society should probably revisit every few years. I think it would do society well to revisit The Dictator. Hold on a second, I dropped my water cap. I think it would do us as a society well for everybody to watch The Dictator once in a while. I just think the commentary in it is brilliant that showed that Charlie Chaplin wasn't just a great performer. He was really, really smart. He was really, really smart. Again, sorry, guys. Part of the thing of my phone blowing up is that my mom's also trying to get a hold of me. Okay. So there's that. Yeah. So The Dictator's one I would go to on that, Oliver. Burning Feathers 101 writes, the creator's son of Gilligan's Island recently said that a movie version is very close. Ooh. What are your thoughts on a potential remake and his casting idea? Steve Martin as Mr. Howell, Beyonce as Ginger, Jeff Bridges as Skipper, and Kevin Hart as Gilligan, etc. I mean, I don't do the whole which X actor should play X role thing. I'll tell you what. I grew up watching reruns of Gilligan's Island. I loved Gilligan's Island when I was a little kid. I mean, it was long after it had originally aired, but watching the reruns of Gilligan's Island I loved Gilligan's Island. Gilligan's Island would be very, very tough today because the world is so mapped now that can we buy the idea like Castaway? Can we buy the idea that somebody could be like a ship could be lost at sea and just on an island that nobody ever finds for years and years and years and years? Maybe. They would have to come up with a neat plot device. But the bottom line is, Burning Feathers, if they announced that they were doing a new Gilligan's Island, I'm all for it. I'm all for it because I love Gilligan's Island. I think there's a lot of potential there. All right. Let's see. We just have time for a couple more here, guys. And then, as you can well imagine, I am mentally exhausted. I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit anxious about having Marc in and like seeing how that would go. And so I'm a little bit mentally fried right now. But let's take just a couple more here. An anonymous viewer writes in, what happened to Jennifer Lawrence? A few years back, it was impossible to imagine an Oscar season without her name everywhere. But now I think this will be the fourth Oscars without her presence. Is she trying to stay away from the big type of roles? Well, I mean, look, a couple of things have happened with Jennifer Lawrence. Number one, let me just bring up her Jennifer Lawrence IMDb. One of the things, she got married. I mean, so that was a big thing. I remember her talking about that she wanted to take a step back for a while. She was obligated to do that damn X-Men movie that she didn't really want to do, I don't believe, in any way, shape, or form. She did Red Sparrow in 2018, which I think was designed to be a real kind of a prestige movie. Unfortunately didn't work out. The movie wasn't that good, which is unfortunate because I was looking forward to Red Sparrow. Also, Mother was designed to be a very auteur kind of maybe awards bait movie. Mother was awful though, just awful. Her performance was great. Javier Bardem's performance was great. All that kind of stuff. Passengers was a misfire again, not that good. But again, on its surface, it looked like it could be a little bit of a prestige film, even though it was a little bit sci-fi. So yeah, now. She still has a number of films coming up here that going into 2020 that could be really big for her. But I think a combination of a couple of projects she got involved with that looked really good, that didn't end up being very good, combined with the fact that getting married and her public statements that she wanted to take a step back for a while. Because remember, she has been in the public eye really since Bones. Where is it here? Winter Bones? I mean, she was acting before Winter's Bone, but in 2010, she was in the Bill Evgal, whatever his name is, show for a bit. But she came out in 2009 with Winter's Bone, and she was still a kid. She was literally still a kid. And she'd kind of been in the public's eye, really focused for basically her entire adult life. So we'll see where she goes from here. I don't love all her movies, but I do think Jennifer Lawrence is a stupidly talented actress. Like, it's just stupid how good she is. Again, that doesn't make bad movies good movies, but when she's in a good movie and she's given it her all, she's pretty special to watch. All right, just a couple more here, guys. Randall McMurphy writes, thanks, Rob, for getting the McMurphy reference the last time I wrote. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of my all-time favorites. Again, unfortunately, Rob's not here today, but he will be back again tomorrow. And of course, Rob got that reference. Rob's going to get all those references, dude. Sean Donahue writes, can you give Campea the Jedi Council back? I don't even know that I'm interested in getting the name Jedi Council back. I mean, yeah, I came up with the name. Harloff and I created the show. But honestly, I honestly feel like if the name Jedi Council was going to go anywhere, I think that name should go to Christian. I think, although Christian's probably not interested in it anymore, but I think that name should go to Christian or to Ken Knapsack. If they're giving away old names, I'll take the movie talk name, thank you very much. But like a Jedi Council, that would probably be more suited going to a Christian or a Ken Knapsack. Andrew Sawyer writes, people are being way too rough on Fernandez. He's human, folks. Humans make mistakes. It's true. It's true. But I also understand people being really invested in something for years and years and years and feeling like they've been disrespected, being angry. And I think that's something that we learn all the time. And listen, I've made decisions in the past that have made people angry. And guess what? I'm going to make decisions that maybe they're right decisions, maybe they're wrong decisions that are going to make people angry in the future. I'm sure I will. But I think both are true. I think it's true to understand why people felt very angry and upset and disrespected. I also believe it's true to say, hey, guys, while being angry and upset, let's also keep in mind that we're all human and we all make mistakes. And we all learn from those mistakes. Some of us just make our mistakes in the public eye and some of us don't. And so I think both can be true. Yeah, people have every right to be angry and upset, and also keep in mind that he's just human. So I think it's a both and situation. Domingo Silva just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you so much, Domingo. Alex Aguiluz. Aguiluz? I'm the worst with names, dude. Forgive me for butchering your name, Alex. I got my nephew to watch Ghostbusters and probably Ghostbusters 2, and he loved it. It's always good. That's some good uncling right there, Alex. Introducing your kids to some Ghostbusters. That's some good uncling right there. All right, Tony Lamar writes, hey, Mark, you done effed up. I think he knows that. I think if anything happened today that we can all understand is that I think he understands that, look, you own something, you have every right to do with that something that you want to do. And I think Marc has that right. And I think we need to respect that. I also think he did some things the wrong way. And I think what we heard from him today is that he's realizing that. And it is what it is. Abhishk Das writes, John, buy Collider. I can't afford Collider. I straight up cannot afford Collider. Not sure I would want to buy it anyway, but I straight up cannot afford Collider. I am, contrary to what the internet may tell you, I do not have $4 million in my bank account. I couldn't buy Collider even if I wanted to. All right. Insomniac writes, I like the way you write your name there. Mark, hire a PR firm so you won't have to deal with these miscalculations. I think you would benefit greatly. Dude, you're not wrong. And I will tell you again, I will tell you something that I texted to Marc. So this is something I said to Marc in a text message, all right? So I'm not throwing anybody on the bus. When I'm about to say something, I told Marc as well in a text message. And I said this. I said, Marc, I have no idea who your counsel is over there. I don't know who has your ear over there. I don't know who the people are that are the ones you turn to immediately when you need counsel and advice. All right? I don't know who those people are. So I have no idea if it's this person or that person. I have no idea. So I'm completely in the dark as to who he listens to over there. But one of the things I said to him was, listen to different people. I don't know if Jack's one of the guys you listen to. I don't know if Edward's one of the guys you listen to. I don't know if whoever. But start listening to different people. Because there is clearly a lack of good counsel being given over there. I never would have let him cancel all the shows without a final show. Never would have let him do it. I never would have let him go on and do that town hall meeting so unprepared. I never would have let him do it. I told him that. I said that on the show. He either needs to identify who the smart people are, because he's got smart people over there. He needs to identify who the smart people are and start listening to them. Because maybe it's on him. Maybe he's not listening. Maybe he's being given good counsel and not listening. I know I gave him advice in the past that he rejected. So maybe he's got smart people there who are giving him good advice and he's not listening. But I think what he's got to do, he's either got to change the people he's getting advice from, or he needs to start listening to the advice he's being given. And to his credit, I think this whole situation has been very much a learning experience for him. And I think that, and listen, it ain't easy to get on camera and say, yeah, I needed to learn some lessons here. That's not easy to do. And I give him full credit in the world for doing that. I really do. I'm not being facetious when I say that. I give him full credit in the world for doing that. All right. CJ Dunn writes, I hope well for your future, and I believe you have learned a lesson. I agree. Well said, CJ. CJ also writes, one more thing. Leadership is not about you. As a leader, you serve your subordinates / consumers. Again, best wishes. And I think that's something he's learning as well. Look, being in charge of something means you got to do things that is best for this group, this company, this team, this outfit, this division, whatever it is. That's your first priority. You got to do what's best for the overall organization. I'm not going to lie. There are decisions I've made in the past that I felt I was doing in the best interests of the team and the organization and the company going forward that were very unpopular. They were. And maybe I was completely right. Maybe I was completely wrong. But I understand Marc's predicament in that I've had to make decisions that I felt were right for the division, that were right for the shows, that were right for the company, that maybe weren't right for some individuals. And sometimes that's not popular. And I get it. I do. And again, I think this has been a really good learning experience for Marc, and I wish him well as he navigates the rest of this moving forward. Burning Feathers writes, hey, John, I respect your thoughts so much. I recall at some point you mentioned playing Diablo 2 a lot before. I did play a bunch of Diablo 2. Do you think that franchise would translate well into a movie series, kind of with horror / Lord of the Rings vibes? Here's the thing. Anything can work, right? I talk about this a lot. You make a movie about Legos, plastic building blocks. You can't make a movie out of that, and they did. And it was great. That first Lego movie, fantastic. The Lego Batman movie, fantastic. I mean, they did a great job with it. So could something like Diablo with its mythology and its history, could that translate well into a movie? Absolutely, it could. It could also be an unmitigated disaster, but it could work out really, really well. The Cape FPL writes, excellent discussion. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Let's see. Jody Bustin, Andy Sonora's Creep. Dude, we're not here to talk about other people and talk about other people's YouTube channels, so let's just give that a little bit of a rest. I appreciate the support on the show, but let's pump the brakes on using a platform just to trash talk people. Let's not do that. All right. Ben Rayner writes, says the guy who just tore Jack Hind apart. Don't think that that's lost on me for a second. All right, Ben Rayner writes, great interview, John. You're really good at it. Have you thought about doing more stuff like that on your channel? If you ever have time, that is. I mean, here's the thing, though. This was a very unique situation because the Collider situation, that's something that I built. Collider Video, at any rate, not Collider.com, not the website side. That was created by other people. I created and I built and I developed that Collider Video thing. So because I have such a personal connection to it, that's kind of why in this situation I've sort of waded into those waters. Let's be honest. I am a fucking nobody. I am a nobody. So, like, if there were ever other big issues going on, I don't see why people involved in other big real issues would even go, Campea who? Why they would want to come in here and let me interview them for it. I don't see why they would do that because I am a fucking nobody. So I'm not sure that would be the case. But you know what? For the John Campea Show, I want the John Campea Show mostly. Again, today was an exception. For the most part, I want to be the John Campea Show to be about the things we love. I don't want to sit here and talk about other YouTube channels. I don't want to talk about the drama going on with other people. I want to talk about, and listen, I've fallen into those pitfalls before. I know I have. I'm guilty of it as anybody. But what I want my channel to be and what I want my show to be is a place where we just get together and celebrate the things we love. And sometimes that means there's a thing we love and we didn't like a certain element of it and we talk about that. But I want this channel to be about movies and storytelling and movie news and some television and stuff like that. That's what I want it to be about. I don't want it to be about drama. And I know I have fallen into those pits before, but I don't want that to be what I do. And so, hey, listen, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, John, there's this big drama going on out there, would you mind moderating and narrating and doing an interview about it for me to come in, whoever me is, for me to come in and talk to you so we can maybe clear it up? I might be open to it, but it's not something I'm going to go out and look for. All right. Darth Sidious writes, John, have you watched the second Birds of Prey trailer yet? I do not believe I have. I'll have to keep my eyes. Thank you for putting that on my radar. Actually, you know what? Give me 1 second. Let me go. Birds of Prey trailer. Let me see. Oh, look at that. A brand new Birds of Prey trailer. No, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to do that as soon as the show is done. Thank you for putting that on my radar, Darth Sidious. Anthony R. writes, with the aftermath of the Collider situation and after your discussion with Marc, are there any takeaways that you have learned from this that you think will help you to continue grow as a person on your channel? That's a great question, Anthony. And by the way, thank you for supporting the channel on that level. I really appreciate that. That's a great question. And I think when situations like this happen, like the one with Marc, Marc's not the only one who's got lessons to learn. I think all of us have lessons to learn. Now, listen, too, look, I never regretted my decision to leave Collider. But over the past 2.5 years, in leaving Collider, are there things I would have done differently now? As a part of leaving Collider, would I have left differently? Would I have handled it a little differently? Yeah, I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, but yeah, I think there are lessons I've learned there. And watching, these things, what's been going on with Collider lately, I think this is a great lesson for all content creators because it's very easy for us to take our audiences for granted. I am keenly aware every day about how fucking stupid lucky I am that I get to be a part of this online film fan community. But I think even I sometimes forget just how lucky I am and how important the audience and the community is. And I think that doesn't mean we don't make decisions we need to make, but I think we always have to take in consideration, and I think this is true for all content creators, what does the decision I'm facing right now, how can it affect the community? Sometimes we lose sight of that. I think it's clearly a situation that Marc had lost sight of. He said that himself. But I think it's something all of us can lose sight of who are involved in content creation. And I think that's a big lesson for us to take away from this. And I think it's a good one for me to keep in mind and for me to learn as well. And hopefully there will be more lessons to learn moving forward as well. Jacob Silvers writes in, did you see the new Birds of Prey trailer? Nope. It dropped apparently while I was doing the show, so I haven't seen it yet, but I will be watching it soon. Muka Muyamba writes, Marc is not a creative, and I hope that he learns that. More opportunity for other creators to build a brand. Well, let me say this. Marc is actually Marc is also a director. Marc's a director. And actually a pretty good one. Back in my final days at Collider, we were producing, at his behest, but we were producing some scripted content. And, as the head of programming, that was my purview to make sure it's all goes well. But there were some things that Marc would then step in and actually get his hands on, and he would direct. He's actually a pretty good director, actually. I got to give. So I would not say that Marc is not a creative. I wouldn't say he's primarily a creative, but I wouldn't say he's not a creative because he's actually a pretty good director. All right. Anonymous viewer writes in, hey, John, I'm new to tipping. This is my first time. Well, thank you so much for the support anyway, man. I just recently watched The Dead Don't Die, and I loved it. I don't know if that counts as a guilty pleasure, but I'm counting it as one. Thank you for all that you do for the community and stay filthy. I know there were a bunch of people that were disappointed with The Dead Don't Die because the trailers were great. You look at the cast you have in there, fantastic. A lot of people didn't like it. But here's the thing. I would call it a guilty pleasure movie. If you watch it and you just think it's great, that's not a guilty pleasure movie. You love that movie. You think that movie's great. It doesn't matter what other people think. If you get a movie like, say, Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice, the greatest bad movie ever made, where I'm like, this movie is insufferable trash, but I love watching it. That kind of becomes a guilty pleasure. So I don't know that I'd call The Dead Don't Die guilty pleasure. Not everybody disliked it. There were a bunch of people that liked it. So I don't know. I don't think you need to call it a guilty pleasure movie. If you think it's a legitimately good movie, that's important. Just say it's a movie you love. Doesn't have to be a guilty movie. Just say it's a movie you love. All right. Miss Liz writes, would you ever consider rebuilding a new version of Movie Talk? What about that turns you off now? Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean. Like, would I consider rebuilding the brand of Movie Talk if Movie Talk was given back to me? Or would I consider going back to Collider to rebuild the Movie Talk brand? Because those would be two different answers. If Marc were to ever come to a place where he's like, you know what, I think what would be best for the community and what would be best for the brand and blah, 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 is for me to just give John Campea the Movie Talk name back. If for whatever reason he decided to do that, I would take it gratefully. And I would probably rebrand my show John Campea's Movie Talk or something like that. And I would build it then. Would I ever go back to Collider? The first reaction to that is, oh, fuck no. I'll just be straight honest with you. That is my first reaction that I would probably give you for the past 2.5 years. Yeah, something along the lines of, I pulled this off a Hallmark card, I believe. Oh, fuck no. Would I ever go back to Collider? That said, I'm not going to lie. Remember how we say sometimes, why would Henry Cavill want to go back and do Superman again? I don't know. Warner Brothers backs up a dump truck full of money to him. I'm not going to lie. If Marc Fernandez gave me a call and said, John, I'm going to pay you $1 million a year to come and rebuild Movie Talk, I would be lying to you. I could pretend to go, no, my integrity is too great for that. I am above that. Listen, you'd know I was lying. If a Marc Fernandez were to call me and say, John, I'll give you $1 million, literally, I will give you $1 million a year to come back here and rebuild this thing. I don't know that I still don't know that I would say yes, but I would be lying and you would know I was lying if I didn't tell you, hot damn, my wife and I would have to go away for a weekend and really think about it. I mean, right? So while my initial reaction is, oh, fuck no, there would probably be some extreme circumstance. I don't know. Some dying child in the world, it's their last make-a-wish that John Campea goes back to Collider and rebuilds me. I don't know. Maybe that breaks my heart and I do. So I'm not going to say never. But my initial reaction is, oh, fuck no. For a lot of reasons. But also because I got my own thing going on here that I'm very happy doing. I love doing my show. I love the community we've built. But anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts on that. Now I'm just talking in circles, which I do sometimes. Let's see here. Thank you for that, Miss Liz. Frank Girardi writes, watch out, John. Marc Fernandez may deep fake yourself. Christian and Schnepp back into Movie Talk. Yeah, don't think I haven't seen some jokes about that. From other places, Frank. I've seen some other jokes. Wouldn't that be something? All right. Francisca DePisa writes, just discovered Moulin Rouge. God, that is a top 20 all-time film for me. No lie. Moulin Rouge is a top 20 all-time film for me. Just discovered Moulin Rouge and I am obsessed. El Tango and Roxanne scene might be my favorite scenes of all of them besides Endgame team-up thoughts. My absolute favorite scene in that movie is This Is Your Song. In the giant elephant, and you can tell everybody. Like, that's where it's like, wait a minute, Ewan McGregor can sing? Holy crap. I love that scene. Actually, at least every 3 or 4 months, I'll just open YouTube and go, This Is Your Song, Moulin Rouge, and I'll just watch the song. It chokes me up. But all the music, it's tantric, it's kinetic. It is a gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful movie. If you guys haven't seen Moulin Rouge, make sure you check it out. All right, last 3 questions, guys, and then we're going to wrap it up here today because we're approaching 2.5 hours now. John McKinney writes, what is your number 1 guilty pleasure movie? Mine is the 2005 Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage. Makes me laugh every time. That's a good one to call a guilty pleasure. I just indirectly already answered that question, though. It has got to be Cool as Ice, starring Vanilla Ice. It is the most unintentionally hilarious film ever made. If you want a good night with you and about 10 other friends, have a few alcoholic adult beverages if you're of age. I don't drink alcohol just because I don't like the taste of it because I'm a loser. But Get about 10 friends together, have a couple of drinks, have some food, and put on Vanilla Ice, cool as ice. You're not going to have a more entertaining night for the rest of the month. I guarantee it. That is mine, John. Christian Baldione writes, can you make a John Campea movie talk with some of the original folks that worked with you since the beginning? Again, I have never been, since the day that I left Collider, really all that interested in creating Collider 2.0. I've wanted to build my own thing, my own show. I wanted to show people that you can do these things yourself. So look, and again, but just like everything else, I'm never going to say never. I mean, Christian and I are doing some stuff together. So, I mean, I don't know, there's that, but it's not my primary goal right now, Christian, just so I'm clear on that. MDB 3000 writes, the show helped me get through the last 7 months in Afghanistan. Thanks, Sean. Well, listen, if you are one of the armed forces members, thank you for your service. That couldn't have been easy. And the fact that this show could be there to help you stay grounded or whatever, and just have a little bit of fun for a little bit, dude, then I am truly, truly, truly honored. Thank you so much for saying that. Coming from somebody like you, that means a lot to me. So thanks a lot. All right. I said only 3 more. Let's just do 2 more and we'll wrap it up here. TJ Thomas writes, John, I just need to know how Rey still had Anakin's lightsaber after The Last Jedi. Didn't it explode? Please help me understand. I'm just guessing they rebuilt it. I'm guessing they just rebuilt it. I mean, clearly with some deeper thing that wasn't done on camera. To me, that let's put it this way. With all the things that I worry about with The Rise of Skywalker, that's not one of the things that I worried about. I was just like, okay, so she rebuilt it at some point. But I totally know a bunch of people, TJ, that kind of stuck with them the wrong way. It's like, well, how does he suddenly have that back? Like the whole boom thing. Yeah. I was much more worried and upset by other things in the movie than that one. All right, and Matt Phillips. We'll get our last question of the day. And then, by the way, everybody else from John McKinney, Joe Hill, and everybody else all the way up who had sent in these questions, do not worry. Your questions are getting answered in a video today. A little bit later this evening, I'm going to do a companion video where we will answer all of the rest of the questions. So don't worry. If you sent in those questions, they're getting answered in a video. You just have to check out the channel a little bit later on. All right. Final question today comes to us from Matt Phillips, who writes, with Christian Bale in the news, I wanted to bring a movie to your attention. It's a World War II film called The Flowers of War. It's one of the most expensive films made in China. It has some of the most emotional scenes from Bale ever, worth a watch. You know, I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm not familiar with it. But you've just totally, hold a second, The Flowers of War. I'm not even really familiar with it. It was made, if this is the right film, yep, it was. It was made in 2011. It was directed by Yimou Zhang, and it stars Christian Bale, and everything else was a Chinese cast. I am not familiar with it. Now, at first, I thought you were talking about Rescue Dawn, but this is one I was not even familiar with. And I'm a Christian Bale fan. This is one of the great things about the film fan community, everybody. We all learn stuff from each other. Thanks for putting this on my radar. I'm absolutely fascinated by this now. I'm absolutely fascinated by this. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. And again, I do want to express and extend my thanks to Marc Fernandez. I thought it was very gutsy for him to do his town hall. I thought it was additionally very gutsy for him to come in here and to face again and to communicate a better, at least a clearer picture of what it was that his thought process was. And I thought he did a very good job of that. I really do. And I want to thank all of you guys for your patience. I know this wasn't the typical John Campea show. We usually do all the movie news topics and stuff like that. But I just kind of felt like, and thank you for indulging me, everybody. I felt like this was the right thing for me to do today. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's also pretty cathartic for me, because I'm not going to lie to you. Not only did Marc and I have a very extreme falling out. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. The last time we were in the same room together, we physically had to be pulled apart. And we were about 30 seconds away from having somebody call the police, I'm pretty sure. I have been, while quiet about it, I'm going to tell you right now, I have been very, as a result of what went down, I have been very angry at Marc for a long time. Not healthy for anybody to hold on to that kind of anger. It's not. And I got to admit that I think for me, today's been pretty there was a catharsis to it for me. And I think this has been pretty cathartic for me. And probably really good and really healthy for me to have today too. So thank you guys for your patience and indulgence as we went through all that. Hey, listen, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow in its normal, regular form. Robert Meyer Burnett will be here to talk about all the good stuff that we have to talk about here and all that kind of stuff. Again, guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for honoring us with spending your valuable time with us here today. I hope you'll consider coming back again tomorrow. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campea, everybody, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.